The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual guests.
What's going on, my Go Squad? Welcome to the Armed Citizen Podcast Live. This is episode number 280. Today's date is Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. Welcome to the live show. We're streaming live, as always, on YouTube. If you're out there in the chat, go ahead and say something. We don't know that you're out there unless you do. Whoever is in the back, mute up, guys. Mute up. If you're out there, like I said, go ahead and say something. We don't know that you're out there unless you do. If you want to text in the show, go ahead and utilize the Ghost Tactical Hotline presented by our good friends Rod and Shelly Gates over Aegis Gun Care. That number is 530-364-4678. Make sure you go check out aegisguncare.com. If you're a veteran, really anybody, but especially if you're a veteran and you're in that hole, you're in the darkness and you're looking for that light, call me, text me, email me 24/7. I cannot give you any medical advice, but I could probably be a pretty decent ear and talk you through some stuff. If you are looking to get into some medical attention and all of that, remember two things. One, you're not alone in this fight. You've got a lot of brothers out here that are willing and able to help you in any way possible. And two, the world is a much better place with you in it. So please utilize the Veteran Crisis Hotline. 1-800-273-8255. Once again, 1-800-273-8255. As always, we are spotlighting the United States Marine Corps. If you have any questions on what it takes to earn the title United States Marine, see the website marines.com. And as always, we're a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Go check out all your favorite pro-gun, pro-2A podcasts over at selfdefenseradio.net. So let me get this off of my ugly mug and bring this ugly mug onto the screen as well. What's going on, guys? How are y'all doing? Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday. If you are out there, like I said, make sure you say something because we don't know that you're out there and all that. But let's say hello to our esteemed panel. Yes, I said esteemed. All the way from the only state that has 4 letters. It takes 2 people to spell it out. From the weird state of Ohio, we got Chris from the 740. What's up, homie?
Hey, thanks for the invite. Glad to be here. Look forward to tonight. This should be a fun topic.
Yeah, I actually, this is a question, and I guess we take it for granted a lot of times. I get this question emailed me or text or something or comment in a video several times a week and have forever. And we've probably talked about it over the years, but it's just something that people keep bringing up. And I guess there's a lot of new gun owners maybe that are getting into ARs or getting into a rifle of some sort, and they're looking to get an optic. And this is just a topic that always seems to pop up. And so I figured we would talk about it because there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different distances to zero your rifle, depending upon what you're actually trying to accomplish with that firearm. So it'll be a fun one. Out from Arizona, we've got the soulless ginger bastard himself. What's up?
Oh, not much. Sorry about that. I thought I muted my mic.
Oh, I didn't know who it was, but I was on. So I was like, I know I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I can hear shit. Like I get like easily distracted. Like, what the hell is that?
I cracked open my Pepsi and definitely.
Well, that's your first mistake. Pepsi, come on, man. Come on.
It's wild cherry. It's what what the wife likes. You gotta get what the wife likes sometimes.
Come on, man.
But
so I started buying these little small Cokes. It makes me feel like really big because my hand. But I find myself, I don't know if you guys are the same way. Do you find yourself like not drinking all of the soda all the time? And so I was like, you know what, these little minis are like perfect because I can finish these, Pretty good. Anyways.
That happens from time to time.
From time to time, it does happen, yes. And from the great state of Texas, our quasi co-host at this point, he's always riding shotgun with us. As a matter of fact, I often send him the wrong link, not even to my chat, just some random makeup a bunch of random letters and numbers on StreamYard, send him a link, but he always seems to find his way in. Don't know how he does it. Maybe because he's a magical leprechaun. Let's say hello to the tactical virus. I mean, leprechaun himself. What's up, Chloe?
It's funny how that 8th dimension works, isn't it?
Apparently it is. I mean,
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't understand how Screaming Skull Saloon says Jolt. So Jolt came out when I was like a teenager, maybe, like, I don't know, it was late 80s, early 90s or something. That was like the first quote unquote like energy drink. And I didn't particularly like it, but I think people liked the idea of the crazy energy drink. And this is, if I remember correctly, there was a pretty hard crash with Jolt. Do you guys ever drink Jolt growing up or anything?
Oh yeah.
What was the other one? There was the green Surge, the one that just brought.
Yeah, I think that was like the Mountain Dew owned one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I never had any of that. I'm not a big energy drink guy, although not because it's called Ghost, but I did have some Ghost energy drinks at SHOT Show, and they're pretty good. But I get a text from Chase, and I don't know why he's not here. He was cooking something, but he might be here a little bit later. A couple days ago, and he's like, "Oh my God, I guess Ghost Energy Drinks now has a orange and cream flavor that tastes like a dreamsicle or a push-up." And he said it's to die for. So I got to go find someone around here that's carrying those things. And apparently, it's pretty awesome. So I got to try that probably.
It's good.
Is it? You've had it?
Mm-hmm.
I think they also make a Swedish fish flavor. If you're interested in that.
Really?
Yes.
I did like the Sour Patch Kid one. That was pretty good. My favorite was the blueberry one. That was pretty good. But I think I might enjoy, if it tastes anything like a dreamsicle or a push-up. Dreamsicles, man, it brings back some serious memories back in the day. So I might enjoy that one. We'll see.
Monster's got one of those out now too. The orange sickle thing.
Oh yeah,
it's hard to find that one.
Yeah. Real quick, G23's out there, and he asked a great question last week about how much money we raised last year with super chats and all of that. And it was a great question. And obviously, he was a huge part of it. He and Mandatory Carry. Thank you guys are consistently awesome with that. Over $2,600 was raised. And they say that the average, now obviously some are more, some are less. But the average care package, they say, is about $15. So we've sent almost 200 care packages on average in 2022. So thank you. That was really awesome. Thank you guys for always doing that. Like I said, we don't encourage super chats, but the super chats that do come through, those go towards some organizations that send care packages downrange. So it's pretty awesome.
Now, how does 200 convert to a squad or a platoon or a whatever?
So a platoon, and we're talking basic numbers here.
Sure.
A platoon's typically like 30 to 40 people, let's say.
Oh, wow.
A company, you're talking probably a couple hundred. A battalion is typically is about 1,000. So I would say we probably were able to send at least, like on average, like an entire company, maybe even 2 companies worth of care packages. So that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty awesome. 200 care packages is a lot. So yeah, it's great. Now Tactical Fudd Buck out there, my buddy. We are going to get a Whataburger in Searcy, which is about 40 minutes from me. Oh, hell yes. Hell yeah. Hey, Risa, they're getting a Whataburger in Searcy. She's like, good. She's not feeling well. That's amazing to hear. I'm loving that. Let's see here. So yeah, thank you to everybody out there in 2022. A little over $2,600. So yeah, that's awesome. I'm very, very, very happy about that. So thank you. And I hope that answers your question, G23. Like I said, G23 was very instrumental in that. Since day one, we've been doing this now for a few years, and he's been constantly doing that. So And he's going through some issues right now. I know he put on his channel and all that. Go check out G23's channel. He's going through a rough patch right now, and he's doing a little fundraiser to help with offset some medical and travel expenses and all that. So if you guys are able and willing to help, please go help out G23. He helps out a lot of people in this community. So maybe it's time for us to pay it forward back to him a little bit. And so if you're able to, look, anything helps. $1, you've got more, whatever. Anything that you're able or willing to, please go check out his channel. Go check out his Instagrams, whatever. And I'm sure he's got links and all of that. I just PayPal them. Easiest for me, but yeah, he's got all sorts of fun stuff out there. So yeah. So that is amazing. How many troops he must have just come in. They say the average care package is $15 each. Now, obviously, some are going to be more, some are going to be less, but the average they say is $15. And so we helped roughly, 150 to 200 care packages go down range. So that's pretty awesome. So thank you again. Clove, speaking of shotguns, you got a shotgun of the week for us, bud?
The Frankie Instinct side plate. Let's go with that one.
I'm sorry?
The Frankie Instinct side plate.
Okay.
Over and under, got some engraving on it.
Okay.
Available in pretty much all the gauges, which is cool because the only gauge that really matters is 28 gauge. But
28 gauge is pretty tough to come by these days, isn't it?
As far as the firearms?
Yeah.
Yeah, during when there was literally nothing on the shelves, you could find 28 gauge shells.
There's just not a whole lot of people making 28 gauge shotguns, I guess.
There's not a lot of variety, I will say that, in 28 gauge shells. Most of what you see is the Winchester AA.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, not a lot of people are making making actual shotguns in 28 gauge. Certainly not making semi-autos. It's what I'm waiting on.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Well, we did a couple polls. You guys know that every Thursday, Saturday, and Monday at 10 a.m. we have our Ghost Tactical polls over our community tab. And starting next week, those polls will not be called the Ghost Tactical polls. We'll just give you a little idea. We'll have someone that's sponsoring the polls, so those will be something else starting next week, which is awesome. And kind of come with a cool name for them, so it'll be all right. But we always we have some fun, and let's go through them real quick. Yesterday's poll, put out yesterday's, got 1.2 thousand votes. Favorite 90s grunge band. Here are your 5 choices, guys. And go ahead and put these out there in the chat as well. Your favorite 90s grunge band. Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, and Pearl Jam. Let's start with Chris. Favorite 90s grunge band, man?
Man, I struggled on this one because there was one band out of those that I literally hated. Yeah. So they were excluded out. But I went back and forth between Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, but I ended up picking Alice in Chains because I think I listened to them more than I did Soundgarden.
Yeah. I love all of them for different reasons. It's very difficult for me. The best 2 voices, like Chris Cornell, and it's everybody else. Let's just be honest with you. Sure. But people don't understand, like, Lane's voice in a weird way was unbelievable. He had a great voice. And if you really want to go listen to the best Alice in Chains, go find the Alice in Chains Unplugged. And Lane literally came out of rehab like the day before, and they weren't even sure he was going to show up. And you're talking about some vocals and all that. For me, that was like the epitome. And so with Nirvana, my favorite Nirvana is the Unplugged side of things. Great stuff. But yeah, Lane's great. Chris Cornell's great. All of these guys had great voices. Maybe not Kurt Cobain, but Kurt Cobain had a great voice for what it was, in a weird ass way. But yeah. Ginger, favorite 90s grunge band?
All right. So
first of all, you weren't even born in the 90s. So
first off, I was born in the 90s. I lived through the 90s, but don't remember most of it because I was a wee lad. I would have to say Nirvana because it's probably the only one I know the most of.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, if this was like 2000s alt rock, and I'd have like multiple choices, but this is not that.
Yeah. Clove, what about you?
Nirvana.
Was it always Nirvana for you?
Yeah, I mean, I listen to everything, so I've certainly listened to the other one. STP is up there, so like maybe that's probably my second, but Nirvana, number one.
I remember
that. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, man, like I don't know, Pearl Jam was pretty solid too. But I think I go Nirvana at the top.
Yeah, like I said, I love all of these bands for different reasons. Nirvana was the first grunge that I really heard, because before any of them were real famous, I guess they were famous in certain ways. But my cousin, who is like an older sister to me, for Christmas when I was like 15 or something, 14 or 15, gave me the Nevermind CD for Christmas, and I had never heard of them. And I put that CD in. I was like, holy, because you understand that the 1990, 91, we're coming off of 5 or 6 years of bubblegum hair bands, aside from Guns N' Roses. And Guns N' Roses was kind of the first one to kind of bring that really rock back. So Nirvana was like, wow, okay, we're getting away from the hair bands, which I love hair bands in a certain way, but I did not like them overall,
Well, and with Nirvana, what I think with Nirvana, like you went the vocal side. I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go the actual music side of it.
Yeah.
Right. So with Nirvana,
very simple
for that era, coming out of hair band and all, Nirvana leaned really heavy into some pretty groovy bass lines.
Yep.
And then Cobain's Fender Jaguar. I mean, who in their right mind played rock or grunge? I guess is an extension of that, right? Or rock or metal or whatever. But who would ever think, like, I'm going to use a Fender Jaguar? Like,
and I'll take you a step further.
And the sound is distinct with that, just like a Telecaster or a Strat.
It's just like when you hear Slash play, it's Slash.
It's a Gibson. Yeah,
it's a Gibson, and you know it from the second you hear it. But the cool thing about Dave Grohl, if people don't know about Dave Grohl, he's now the lead singer of Foo Fighters, and he's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame under 2 bands, which is kind of cool. He was a drummer, and if you ever see, he doesn't talk about it very often, but I saw an interview a while ago that he was talking about being the drummer for Nirvana and the inspiration. He said, I was not a very good drummer. But where he got his inspiration for the drum lines for Nevermind was a lot of disco, a lot of the Gap Band. He said, I would listen to a lot of disco stuff, and if you're a drummer, you understand what the disco rhythm was and the drum beats. And if you listen to Nevermind, it's the Gap Band and all these other disco,
well, have you seen all of the mashups between like Nirvana and disco, like the Bee Gees?
No, I haven't. Well, that makes sense because of the drum lines, for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot of mashups out there with disco and Nirvana that people have woven together, and it meshes so well. You're like, oh wow. I mean, they got to slow one down or speed one up, obviously with a tempo or something like that. But like everything, the bass lines, just like everything matches up.
There's a lot of disco in Nirvana. Like Nirvana, I love the music. Soundgarden was 100% the first time I ever heard Spoon Man and these different things from Soundgarden, like Chris Cornell's voice. And actually I had heard that before really Soundgarden, when Pearl Jam came out big, right after that they released the Temple of the Dog album, which was basically Pearl Jam with Chris Cornell singing also with them, that they did before 10 came out. For Pearl Jam, but they released it afterwards, and I'm sitting there listening, like, Say Hello to Heaven, and I'm like, who is this voice? Like, this is unbelievable. So from that day on, like, I've been a huge Chris Cornell fan. So anything he did, whether it was Soundgarden or Audio Slave, whatever it is, to me, Audio Slave was like one of the best things ever because I was a huge Rage Against the Machine fan. Tom Morello is a huge, huge favorite of mine with guitar. And now you add Chris Cornell, like, oh, okay, this is perfect. But yeah, Soundgarden was definitely on there because of Chris Cornell. Alice in Chains, once again, just listening to Lane sing was amazing. STP. Scott singing was just the voice. And then Pearl Jam was actually probably the most successful until 94 when Cobain. Then Nirvana has just become this thing, this mystic thing. Pearl Jam was probably the most commercially successful. And people just take it for granted. But if you guys ever listen to Eddie Vedder's voice, Eddie Vedder's got a beautiful, distinctive voice. So, I mean, all of them had pretty good voices, but there were a lot of talent coming out of, except for STP, but all these other ones came out of Seattle STP. I think it was LA or San Francisco. I think it was LA. But great stuff. Great stuff. 42% of the people say Nirvana. In second place with 24% is Alice in Chains. Third place with 16% is Pearl Jam. Fourth place with 10% was Soundgarden, and coming in dead ass last at 9% was STP. Interesting. It doesn't surprise me that Nirvana won. For me, I was more of a Pearl Jam because you guys remember. Well, at least Clover.
I would have thought Pearl Jam would have been higher.
I think so. I do too. But you understand that you've got that Lane's dead and Cobain's dead. I think that Alice in Chains and Nirvana kind of get a little bit more mystical because they're no longer around. Maybe
it's a good point. A little more nostalgia or whatever.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people, like my daughter, listens to a lot of '90s grunge stuff, and she's more interested in Nirvana at times because of the mystique of Kurt Cobain. And then what would have happened with them? Who knows? But yeah. So the next poll came out Saturday, and it's got 1.3 thousand votes. Odd one, I know. Favorite Clint Eastwood Western? Your choices: Outlaw Josie Wales, Pale Rider, A Fistful of Dollars, Unforgiven, or The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Let's start with Ginger on this one.
I'd have to say Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I didn't read the question all the way through when I saw it. I was going to say, why is Gran Torino not on this list?
Oh, yeah, Western.
Can we push it? I mean, it's slightly a Western in modern times.
We all know your favorite, Ginger, is Bridges Over Madison County. Don't lie.
Wow.
You want my honest opinion? One of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies of all time, Space Cowboys. Just saying, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. You'll thank me later.
That's one of my favorite for all four of them.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you've never seen Space Cowboys, go watch it, and you'll understand why it's such a great Tommy Lee Jones, Donald Sutherland, Clint Eastwood, and James Gardner. And they're all hilarious in their own rights. And it's one of those great movies. It really is. Great movie. But yeah, this one says Western. So Good, Bad, and the Ugly. All right. Clover, what about you? They're all good. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, they're all good. And Good, Bad, and Ugly is probably more iconic, but it's like favorite.
Yeah.
Probably Outlaw Josie Wales for me.
That's mine.
Favorite.
That's
right?
Mine.
Like,
yeah.
Like they're iconic.
I think The Good, Bad, and the Ugly is a better movie.
It's a better soundtrack. For sure.
100% on that. Just the one song. That's it.
Right.
But I remember, like, I want to say that Outlaw Josie Wales, and then there's a John Wayne Western called Rio Bravo. It had Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson. Those were like the first two Westerns that I remember seeing with my dad as a kid. And so those are always going to be kind of special. But yeah, Outlaw Josie was my favorite. But yeah, Good, Bad, and the Ugly is probably the most iconic if you had to guess one. Chris, what about you? Which one's your favorite?
I got to go with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
I mean, 100% great movie. So let me ask you guys this before we go on and give the results. When it comes to Westerns, Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, if you had to go, which one would you go?
Eastwood.
Yeah. Chris, Ginger, which one?
I'm going Eastwood. I hate to say it. I never liked John Wayne.
John Wayne is a generational thing. Like, I appreciate John Wayne, and it's not like I won't sit and watch a John Wayne Western. It's not like I've seen them over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But I think it's a generational thing. Like, for us, I think like our parents would say John Wayne.
Yeah, probably.
Right? And younger generations, who knows, right? Because you grow up in different times and whatever. But I think for our parents, John Wayne would be the most get the most votes in that. And then for us, I think probably Clint Eastwood.
Yep, I would agree.
It's really hard to say because I think Wayne.
You don't know who either one of them are because you're so young.
Well, but we lost John Wayne, but long before Clint Eastwood still kicking too.
John Wayne died in the 80s.
Would it be different, right, if John Wayne was still around?
Very well could be.
Well,
you know what I mean?
The thing is, I think John Wayne had more iconic characters than Eastwood, but Eastwood had better roles, and his movies were better.
Prior to more modern film, right? So like Eastwood did a lot of Western, and then moved back into things like, what is it? The one with the monkey, Every Which Way But Loose, and all that.
And then you had Dirty Harry's and all of those.
Right. You get into the Dirty Harry's, you get into all of that, right? And so I think that, I don't know. It's just like John Wayne was more of a mixture. I mean, there was a lot of crossover with John Wayne.
Well, John Wayne was also became famous more of the war movies than
that's
the
what
Westerns.
I'm saying. He was like a balance of military and cowboy, or even like Civil War type cowboy, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Clint Eastwood, at least in the early days, during kind of that time, was almost all Western.
Yeah. Now G brings up a great point. Said John Wayne was a cop or a federal agent in most. Clint Eastwood was against the law. Yeah, John Wayne was always like a sheriff or a marshal or some kind of law enforcement, the hero, if you will. And Clint was always almost the anti-hero. But
it was kind of a Batman Superman thing.
Yeah,
between them almost.
Absolutely.
Right?
And maybe that's why you kind of can like both, is they weren't competing for the same roles. They weren't doing the same thing, kind of thing. Yeah, for sure. Right. For 1.3 thousand votes, 49% say the good, the bad, and the ugly. Oh, snap. Snob, favorite Clint Eastwood Western.
Outlaw Josie Wales.
Thank you. All right. I agree. That's my favorite. But yeah, 49% say the good, bad, and the ugly. 25% in second place was Josie Wales. What the hell? Third place was 16% was Unforgiven. Great one. Not one of my favorites. Like, I don't like Unforgiven as much as a lot of other people. I'll just say that. They'll say, it's the best, like, modern, like, since the 80s. I think that Silverado is probably the best Western after 1980. I just love that movie.
Absolutely.
That was Kevin Costner's, like, big, like people didn't know who the hell he was. And then that just kind of, I think he had been in a few things, but, like, Silverado was the first one. He played Jake and was like, oh, who is that guy? He's funny. But, yeah, and third place was Unforgiven. Okay, when fourth place was 6% was Fistful of Dollars, and then 4% was Pale Rider. Kind of suspect those last two getting just overshadowed by the top three, obviously. So, and the last one that came out last Thursday's got over 2,000 votes. This is right up Clover's alley here. Favorite type of shotgun. Break action, semi-auto, pump, lever action, or bolt action. Let's start with Snob on this one. Favorite type of shotgun?
Either break action over and under or pump. Either one I'm fine with.
Okay. All right. Chris, let's start with you on this next one. Type of shotgun.
Semi-auto for me.
Okay. Ginger?
I'm going to have to say pump, but you left one off the list, and I would say, because it deserves its own slot, is slam fire. Slam fire shotguns are a blast. Technically, they're pump. Come on, Snob. You know you love a good slam fire shotgun.
I have one, but I have a piece of all thread to eject the shell with because it gets stuck in there every time. I think the gunsmith that built it didn't do a good enough job smoothing that chamber or something.
Yeah. Rother likes pumps. You take that however you want to. Just saying. Take that however you want to. He likes pumps. Let's bring in the resident Fud King, Super Fud, whatever weirdo shotgun guys. So Be ready, guys. Be ready for about a 15-20 minute answer here. So sit back and relax.
At least. So regardless of what the poll determines or what anybody
that
else
was great,
out
Clover.
there
Thanks for telling
says,
us.
Yeah,
there's only
mute his ass.
There's only one correct answer here, and it is a double barrel. Can be in an over-under or side by side. It can be either way, but it's got to be a double barrel. Why? Simplicity of parts and design, without a doubt. And versatility, because you can swap chokes and everything else. You've got two barrels, so why not, right? And that's the correct answer regardless.
Okay. Fifth of the 5 that I put on there, 59, not a surprise, 59% say pump action or pump shotgun. Let's see here. Second place at 34% semi-auto. And
so people, so the second, there's a lot of people out there that they don't really care whether they're crap cycles or not.
Nope. No, they don't care.
Okay. Yeah.
Not one bit.
That's fine. Yeah.
Not one bit. In third place with a whopping 4% was brake action. In fourth place with a whopping 2% is lever. And at 1% bolt action. There's probably the younger generation doesn't even realize that there were bolt action shotguns. You know what's
interesting about that poll?
I have no idea.
That goes
nothing, honestly, because it's about shotguns. So
hear me out here. That goes from most to least pretty much in order of how many of those types exist.
Yeah. And probably how they sell also.
You see a whole lot of pumps. You see quite a bit of semi-auto, but not near as many pumps.
Yeah.
I guess brake actions, if you threw in single shots and, a lot of different things, maybe, but still, I mean, there's just not a ton that are manufactured and sold compared to, I think, pumps. And then levers and bolts, like you don't see any bolt shotguns anymore.
That's what I'm saying. I'll be willing to bet the average 20-something-year-old doesn't even realize that bolt action shotguns even are a thing. John,
No, I did the Savage 220. Savage 220.
You Googled that. Stop it.
No, I used to sell guns. Do you think, I wanted to pose it to everyone here, do you think the reason why is because the brake action is so low is because the way people are seeing guns in video games and stuff now is a lot of pump and semi versus brake? It's a generational thing.
In the younger crowd, sure,
yeah.
So I don't think people appreciate shotgun sports. I think is one of the issues, and I think that it's the same way, Ghost, and you'll feel what I'm saying here. It's the same way I think a lot of people don't appreciate golf.
Okay.
Would you agree that there's a lot of people that don't appreciate golf?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think part of that, but part of that is golf takes a lot of room to do, right?
Yeah, sure.
Shotgun clubs, shotgun fields take a lot of room, right? It's not just one lane, 25 yards or whatever, shooting a pistol or whatever the case may be. You got to have room to throw a clay, especially if you got a sporting clays course that could take up acres, right? And so I think if it was more prevalent, people would understand the brake action, especially in over and under, or if people did more bird hunting and things like that, right? They would see it. The thing is, you've got a lot of run and gun, and if you're talking the competition world, and you've got a lot of what am I thinking? Like deer hunting type situations, like, you know what I mean? A lot of states that you have to do that hunting with shotgun, and when you're not talking about the pattern of your shot coming into play and things of that nature, you don't appreciate what you get with a single shot, because that your line of sight basically down the barrel and all of that stuff is really coming into play. They usually fit you a lot better and stuff like that. So I think that's why it's access to be able to go out and bird hunt, or access to be able to go out and get on a shotgun field, or have a back pasture they can go in and fling clays or whatever the case may be. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
Let me ask you guys this real quick, as I'm speaking of ignorance here. Snob and Chris and Clover, and maybe even John, but like when it comes down to price breakdown, obviously pump actions are probably going to be the cheapest, but where does brake action as far as the breakdown of cost of shotgun?
Oh, it's
is it cheapest?
That's weird. So break action is the cheapest and the highest, and that's what I'd said when I chose it earlier. Break action can be your single barrel H&R from 30 years ago at the gun show for $80, $75, $80, or it can be literally a $300,000 custom over and under, right? Like it can literally run that gamut, and you don't see that with any of the other ones you talk about. You don't see that with pumps or semi-autos or whatever. There's not even, let's say, a $200 semi-auto and a $100,000 semi-auto. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's crazy when you get into break action, and so that's why I'm saying, just saying break action. And I think that's a lot of things too. People see like, oh, it's just a break action shotgun, even if it's an over under, it's 2 shots. I'm not paying $1,200 for that, or $1,500 for that, or $800.
Could be,
right. I can buy a semi-auto, or I can buy 2 pumps, and it's like, you don't understand though. It's like sporting equipment, right? It's like Amazon bargain. Let's relate it to golf for you, right? It's like Amazon bargain basement golf clubs versus high-end Pro Tour stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
And some people they don't get the value in the latter, and that's fine because they may not enjoy that sport or whatever they need those for. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
Well, you brought up sporting clays and things like that. I think it's easier for somebody to get into a sporting clay, a $200 brand new pump, and go out and buy a box of shells.
And you're screwed on true doubles, John. You're screwed on true doubles.
I don't disagree, but if I'm looking at that, trying to get somebody into that, a pump is the cheapest way to get in versus an over-under. You're talking double the price for an over-under.
So sporting clays, you're screwed. 5-stand, potentially screwed. And skeet, you're potentially screwed. Now, most single trap games, right? You could play with the pump and it wouldn't be that bad. And I've seen a lot of people try to shoot. Don't get me wrong. There's people that are really good that can do it, but I've seen a lot of, let's just call them novice to, amateur side, right? Try to shoot sporting clays and different things with the pump, and it ends badly because they know that they have to be so quick on the pump, and it breaks their mount. You know what I mean? And everything else, and it jacks with their head so much. So over and under, if you're gonna do shotgun games, I mean, over and under or semi-auto, without a doubt, is the way to go. But the thing is, if you've got true doubles, you walk up on a stage and you got true doubles, and there's one of them is hard to get. In other words, it's true doubles and one's moving away from you. They're both kind of opposite directions. Well, you've got a pretty long delay from the time you hit that one till you get the other. It's further away. And sometimes you got to tighten up your choke. So that's where having that double barrel, even if it's semi-auto, you have to be really, really, really quick, or just getting lucky, right? And land that shot pattern in a way that you just get lucky and something happens to break the clay. Whereas if you have that over and under, you could switch to a little tighter choke, say from a cylinder bore or a skeet over to something like a light modified or a modified, and you wouldn't have any problem. I mean, you could cut down on it just like you normally would if it was closer. We got all off into shotgun stuff. Let's get out of that. What's the topic tonight?
Thank you so much, because I literally was looking for the allergy medicine. So
John asked, man. John asked.
I should have known better. So those are the poll questions. Like I said, starting next week, we're having a sponsor for the polls. They're always fun. We have a good time with those as always. But we're going to kind of dive into our topic tonight, which, like I said, it's one of those things where I think a lot of us maybe take for granted because we've been doing it for so long, and it's just second nature. We all have our own ways of doing it, our own distances, depending on what platform we're using, what our goals are with that firearm, whether it's handgun, rifles, whatever. But it's something that I always get either emails or comments in the videos or whatever, and it's about zeroing firearms. Now, obviously, the vast majority of them are asking about rifles, whether it's bolt action or ARs and all of that. But more and more people are asking about pistol optics, and I don't run optics on my pistols, but I know that some of you guys do. I know Snob does. I think
Chris, you're wrong.
Well, I very well could be, but I have not been convinced as of yet. I'm not saying that the door is shut, but as of yet, I have not been convinced. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But as far as zeroing, like I said, there's different ways to zero your optics. There's different distances depending upon what you're looking for, what you're using it for, and all of that. Let's start out with basic ARs. An AR 15, let's say 223 556. I guess you could go 300 blackout, but just the basic AR platforms. I think that's where a lot of people are getting into ARs in the last few years, and that's the vast majority of the questions I'm getting. Is I've got a video that has done really well over the last few years on a certain type of zero that I use. I've also got cool videos that do well on optics, so those questions come a lot, very, 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 very much so in those videos. But let's start with Chris. Now, you probably have a couple different ways of zeroing, depending on if you're running 3-gun or if you're running just an AR for defensive reasons. But in generalities, let's start out with this one. Not distance as of yet, but how do you go? What technique do you go about to zero? Do you use a 3-shot or a 5-shot, 10-shot? How many rounds in your grouping do you typically use to try to get that zero?
It's always 5 for me.
Always 5? Okay.
Yeah.
John, what about you? When you're zeroing an AR, what kind of groups, how many in a group do you use?
Same as Chris, 5.
5. Clove?
It sort of depends on the caliber and a few other factors, but
yeah, well, did you hear
minimum 5? Yeah.
Yeah, and the basic AR 223 556, just a basic old rifle. Minimum of 5. Okay.
Usually minimum 5. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Snob, what about you?
Well, actually, zero it, I just use 2 because I strap it down on a sled and zero it on my second one, and then I usually check it with like 3 more. But
okay, well, we're gonna get ready to come zero. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, we'll talk about how to zero, different ways to how to zero. Let's welcome Chase. What's up, homie?
What's up, man? Oh,
not a lot. When we're talking AR-15 and 223 556 in generalities. How many shots in a grouping do you usually start out with when you're zeroing an optic?
I'm kind of doing
or just zeroing the rifle if you're using irons or whatever,
I'm doing kind of like what Snob was saying. It's usually about 2 at first, and then I shoot a 3-shot group behind it, so 5 total.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I will depend. I've used a lot of different methods to zero. My typical one is I do a 5-shot group, just to kind of see where it's at, and then once I kind of get an idea, then I'll start going 3-shot groups after that to kind of get dialed in. And usually I don't have to go more than a couple groups after that. Usually it's the second one. Group, but I'll start at 5, just kind of get a basic, because you might have a flyer or something go through and you discount that. So I'll usually take 5 shots. Once I get an idea of where we are, then I will then I'll go down to 3. Real quick, mandatory care out there, $20 super chat. Thank you, homie. Appreciate you. He says keep fighting, he'll call fix. There you go. Thank you very much for that. You're a good man, Charlie Brown. So let's start with Snob on this one. And let's talk about the 2-shot zero. And this is something that a lot of people, especially if you've been doing it for a while, a 2-shot zero is something that is relatively easy to do, but you kind of got to get the hang of it. The basic gist of it is you take your shot, you kind of see where that hole is, and you kind of move your red dot, if you will, to in a sled where it's stable. You move that dot to where the hole is, and that typically will get you pretty close to center. Is that what you pretty much are talking about, the 2-shot zero, Snub?
Yeah, I really like to put it in a sled if I can. Put it in a sled where it's really solid. Yeah. Take your first shot, then get back where you aimed originally. Move your dot or your reticle over to your impact point. As long as
it gets it pretty close,
shot, normally, if you've been shooting for a while, if you pulled a shot or if something went wrong when you took that shot.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So it's just, and usually it's dead on after that. You shoot a 3-shot group to follow it up, and you're done.
Yep. And when people talk about the sled, and what that is it's I don't know, a couple 3 feet long. You put the rifle in, and it really keeps it stable to where you're able to zero pretty easily because of the rifle. You're not really holding the rifle. You're not moving it. You're just really pulling the trigger. So if you're out there and you don't know what it is, that's kind of what the sled. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's a rest where you can weight it down where it doesn't move, and you can also strap the rifle in.
And you can adjust it to where like you get it in that sled, and you can kind of adjust that up and down and all of that until it gets wherever your bullseye or where you want to aim at for you. So it's a pretty cool thing. There's many different brands of them,
and they make them for handguns too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, sure.
They're a little bit more finicky.
I've actually never used one.
That. Well, I mean, we might get into that later when we talk about handguns, but
we'll definitely get into handguns. Yeah. Let's go to John. And you said you use about a 5-shot grouping and all that. What method typically do you use to zero your AR?
Normally, it's just fire and then adjust. But the big thing that I see mistake with a lot of people is that they'll chase the rounds instead of shooting for group. They'll just try to chase the rounds and keep chasing it, and that's when you got issues. So I'll fire my 5-round group, adjust, fire another couple rounds just to see where they land.
Yep. Now what he's talking about is shooting and adjusting. If you get the right kind of target, and you can get them at most of your gun shops, if not, get them online, but they come in the 1-inch by 1-inch squares and all of that, to where, you'll know, okay, well, I am 3 inches left and 2 inches high. And you'll have to figure out what your optic is, and each click is going to be worth, and all that, especially whatever distance you're shooting at. But then you'll just kind of adjust the turrets to get that down. And so, yes, you might have to. I can't see what that avatar is for Chase. Do I want to know?
It's the cat with the Mac.
Okay, I can't see. I have terrible eyesight right now. But yeah, that's a good way. Bring in Chloe, or we're going to Chase since you're here. What kind of method do you typically use when zeroing your ARs?
I'm doing something similar like Snob's doing. So most of my long guns in general, it's going to have a good bore sight to begin with, and then I'm going to bag it or sled it, fire, adjust your point of aim to your point of impact, shoot a group, make your fine tweaks.
Yep.
Now, I left out the bore sighting part. Forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, and bore sighting is typically you bore sight before you even try to get shots on target. You just bore sight, just kind of get a general idea. You can do that. Now, Smeggy brings up something. He said, just get drafting paper. I use it all the time as an engineer.
If your optic, whatever it might be, and we haven't really talked about the distance at which we're talking about sighting in. Right?
That's going to be the next one.
But if you get an optic that is mechanically zeroed, right?
Yeah.
In other words, it's not a demo that was on the case. Somebody twisted the turrets 18 different directions before you bought it.
Yeah.
Odds are you're going to be able to mount that on a firearm.
It'd be pretty close, yeah.
And you're going to be able to hit an 8.5 by 11.
Yeah,
at 25 yards or whatever you're talking.
Now, depending upon the company, some will do 100-yard zeros, some will do a 5,200-yard zero from factory, and most of the time you can find out pretty quickly what it's typically zeroed at. I'd say that the average is probably a 100-yard zero, to where you'll know kind of at 100 yards that you're going to be on paper, like you said, 8.5 by 11, right out of the box.
At worst, it's going to be high or low because of your mount, the way you've got it mounted. It's going to be worst. So for me, I mean, you can shoot a simple 8.5 11 with a garage sale sticker dot in the middle or something. But if you don't hit paper, move your point of aim to the top of the paper and at the bottom edge of the paper. You know what I mean? Because that's a flat edge. And see if you hit, and then you'll know if you're high or low. So sometimes it can take more than a couple shots depending on how far away you are and how big of a piece of paper you're shooting at.
Yeah. Now Marcus says his ARs are 1 in 9 twists, 0 at 50, a 1 in 7 twist at 100. The twist rate is going to have a factor, depending on what you're going to be using it for and all that. But yes, Chris, what about you, my man? Method.
All my rifles, I zero, and my PCCs, I zero them all on a sled.
Okay.
And all my handguns with red dots, I zero them all off of a shooting bag.
Okay. Yeah, the shooting bag works just fine if you can't get a sled and all that. For sure. Just make sure it's stable, guys. If you're out there and just make sure you're able to get that rifle stable somehow. But yeah, Clover, your method as far as zeroing your ARs, how do you kind of go about that? Hello?
That's the most genius thing he's ever said.
I agree.
That is intriguing.
So I'm gonna use a sled because it's easier. But then there's a couple of points I want to make on that, like adding on to it. It may be premature to do that, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So after usually 2 shots and you're there, right? And then put another 3 and you beat the center out of whatever you're shooting at. You're like, okay, we're good. I want to do a couple of other things. From there, I want to do a return to 0, right? Especially if we're talking about a new optic and it's a new model and I don't got a lot of experience with it. So what I mean by that is I'm going to go however many clicks to the left, fire a shot, turn it back however many clicks I turned previously and take a shot, right? So I should be center. I should be at a certain point to the left, right? Then I go, then I go right. I do the same thing. Dial it out the same amount of clicks the other way. Take a shot, dial it back. So you should be eating the center out every time, and you should be at an equal distance, basically, right? Up and down.
Yep.
And I'll get up and down. I'll make a plus sign, basically, right? And then I'll hit the corners, right? All the way up, that many clicks up and to the left, and that many clicks up and to the right, doing a return every time, right? And you go through a lot of ammo with that, sure. So that's more of, rather than I'm trying to zero the rifle, like I want to make sure that optic, right, like the adjustments and everything are good. I'm not going to have something where, everybody, makes the claim that the scope gets off. And along with that, I'll throw another caveat in here that if you're in Chase and Chris and Snob and whoever that uses a sled too, once you zero on a sled, do you then go and shoot off of a bag or offhand or something like that?
I'll do offhand.
Yeah.
I will shoot offhand.
Because here's the thing. I can promise you, it is not going to be in the same spot.
Right.
If you get off of that sled, right, whatever you're propped up against, whether a tree, a table, a bag, it's going to be off just a little bit. There'll be a click or two that you can adjust because, again, the way that you mount the rifle and everything else is not going to be the same as in that sled.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind if you're talking maximum precision, right? If you're talking close enough, especially for hunting or something like that, you're going to be close enough at most distances for hunting and things of that nature.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought we were talking like ARs and not precision rifles.
Yeah, we are. We're talking ARs.
Well, ARs. Sometimes people use ARs for precision.
Well, I guess that's true.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't.
Neither do I. Let's kind of go and Snob. Let's kind of start with you on this one. For ARs, what is your general zero distance that you use?
I'm not one of these weirdos that have to do that perfect 36 yard zero. I do mine at 50 yards if it's got a dot on it, 100 if it's got a LPVO.
Yep. So if you're out there and you are new to this, the 50-yard zero is very, very commonly used, and it's you might also hear it called the 5200 yard. And what that means is where the trajectory of that projectile on the point of aim versus point of impact. A 50-yard zero, that point where it crosses that line, that imaginary line, also crosses at 200. So technically, if you're hitting bullseye at 50 yards with that same zero, you'll hit the bullseye again at 200. That's in generalities, depending on grain and all of that. But in generalities, a 5,200 yard zero is very, very popular because of that reason. So, Chase, what about you? What zero distance do you typically go after?
Pretty much like what Snob was just saying too, it's usually around a 50 for AR rifles, type rifles. I mean, same idea, same generality. If you're on at 50, you're on it too, and I can adjust as far as that goes. Like any of the LPVOs, red dots, I'm not shooting much past 3 anyway, so I can adjust.
Absolutely. Now, Smeggy says that G-Webs has a good video explaining how zeros work. Yeah, I'm sure G's got a great video on a lot of different topics over the years, so you can just go and down that rabbit hole of G-Webs. But for sure, yeah, he's definitely got a couple of them. Let's go to Chris on this one. What distance are you typically gonna zero at?
So my 2 ARs that I use for coyote hunting and hog hunting, I zero those at 100 yards. Okay. Just because very rarely do I ever call a coyote in closer than 100 yards. All my other ARs are all zeroed at 50.
Okay. So the defense ARs, if you call it that, are the 50, 200 zero, but you're hunting more precision, if you will, compared to just the defense is going to be at 100 yards. That you're saying, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, John, what about you?
For me, my AR pistols are zeroed at 25, and then like my 350 Legend and my 16-inch AR zeroed at 50.
50. Okay. Clover, dare I ask, how long is this answer going to take?
What's an AR again?
Yeah. What typically do you with an AR? What do you typically distance are you zeroing at?
I usually go with the 5200, and then when we're talking 5.56, if we're talking about blackout, especially with subsonic, a lot of times I'll bump that back to 25.
Yeah. I will go with my ARs. I always go with what they call a battlefield zero. It's something the Marine Corps has been using forever. It's called a 36-yard zero, and the gist about that, I'm not, when it comes to my AR, I am not a precision guy. I want to know that's in a defense situation that if I aim center chest on someone, it's going to hit. So with my ARs, a 16-inch ARs and all of that, I use a 36-yard zero, because if you aim center mass from 0 yards out to 300 yards, you are going to hit within 6 inches at any distance from, whether it's high or low, 6 inches from point of aim. So what that tells me is if I aim mine at center mass, I'm going to be able to put that threat down from 0 to 300 yards without having to worry about anything. And that's why I use a 36-yard zero. I've been using it forever. Some of them I actually have in the past used the 5200, because that's the same kind of a situation. The reason why I go with that, people ask me all the time, especially in the videos, why do you not care about after 300 yards? Well, if I'm going to have to shoot out at 300 yards, first of all, I run red dots or EOTech. Some of them have LPVOs, but you're not going to run those out much past 300 yards with an AR. Now, you can, obviously. I choose not to. If I have to worry about something that's more than 300 yards out, I'm going to go bolt action at that point. And that's a whole different ballgame. We're going to talk about more precision. But in a battlefield zero, I want something that I know from 0 point blank yards to 300. If I aim center mass, that threat's going to get hit. So that's why I use a 36-yard zero. It's very, very easy, very, very simple. You do it the same way as you're just zeroing at 36 yards instead of 50 or 100 yards or whatever. But that's why I run that 36-yard zero, and I find it great. Now now for AR pistols, especially my AR9, I'll go with it sounds weird, but I'll go with like a 7-yard zero with my AR9 pistol because it's kind of the same thing. That AR9 is going to be able to get you at 7 yards, kind of almost out to 100 yards, that same trajectory, and all of that with a 9mm in that pistol. It's kind of the same thought process as a 7-yard zero. So you can use a 10-yard, 15-yard, 25. I wouldn't go much more than a 25-yard zero. This is me personally. You can do whatever you want. But with an AR pistol, especially like a 9mm PCC, I wouldn't go much outside of a 25-yard zero, because you're not going to have to hold a whole lot
with a 25 and under. More importantly, if you're gonna, I look at the AR9 where that's my 0 to 100 yard defense thing. I can use a pistol or the AR9 pistol. Once we start talking 100 yards and up, I'll probably go in my purest form. I'll go to the AR, the 16-inch AR. Go from that to 300 yards, and after that, I'm going to a bolt action. Obviously, assuming that all of these are available at the time. But those are generalities. My CQB with AR9, I usually go to either 7 or 10 yard 0 on those for that. Let's transition to bolt action. Now, bolt action, whether it's hunting or competition, typically tend to be more precision based. So let's start with Snob on a bolt action. What kind of yardages are you typically zeroing your bolt action optics with?
100 yards.
100 yards still. Okay. Chase, what about you?
It depends on the caliber because I'm a bit of a precision rifle whore. So
yep,
generally 200. A hunting rifle is a little different. Hunting rifle, old school 100-yard 0. Because where I'm from, you're not making too many crazy long shots. But generally 200 plus. Some of my big caliber super specialty stuff have even longer 0s than that.
Yeah. So you're going, when you say super precision, let's say you're a super precision and you're going to push out to 600 yards or 700 yards. Where would you probably zero that at?
I mean, most of those things are going to be a 200-yard 0.
200 yards, okay.
I mean, that's when I'm saying that. Like, take my 300 Norma as a good example. A rifle that I can easily push 2,000 plus.
Yeah,
that's when you start getting into these 300 to 500 yard zeros.
The 500 yard 0s and stuff. Yeah. You're talking mile plus at that point. Yeah. Clover, bolt action. Your typical and atypical 0s that you have used.
Yeah, similar to Chase. It's really going to depend on the rifle, the caliber, and the task at hand, right? For me, I like, depending on what I'm going to do, if you're talking about a hunting situation, a lot of times, and I run mill dot mostly, it's what I'm comfortable with, and I want to center my mill. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, like, if I think my max is going to be 500, my minimum is going to be 50. I want to find a sweet spot so I've got quick change with those meals.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that's going to depend on the load. That's going to, you're going to have to get on on the range and fire a couple rounds and whatever and figure that out. So there's a lot of figuring out. For just generic purposes in general, it's hard to beat 100-yard 0 on most things.
Yeah, I think that for most people, if you're just starting out, until you start worrying about different calibers, different things, if you're just trying to get like a 308 or something, and you're just trying to be able to utilize it for hunting or for just basic bolt action precision stuff, you really can't go wrong with 100-yard 0. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. John, bolt action, what's your typical 0 distance at?
Normally 100, 200, depending on the caliber and what I'm doing. If it's 200 if I'm going out to 12, 1500.
Okay. Yep. Chris, what about you?
100 yards on my bolts.
No matter what your target distance could be?
I only got 2, and I never shoot past. The longest range I've got around here is 300 yards. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I got my 308 bolt at 100 and my 450 at 100.
Okay.
I don't know what y'all are so worried about. I just take my Weaver 3x9 and I just, 0 to 100, and I just hold her up, 3 inches above the deer's back, and you just drop that deer if she's a 300.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and you actually bring up
what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
You bring up a point that's actually we're transitioning to is holdovers. So this is just my opinion, and we'll get you guys. You guys at this point just jump on in. We're talking.
That's why I like mill dot.
Yeah, mill. Yeah, yes.
You give me a mark shot, you're gone at that point.
So
mills are so
hold on. Let me go. So for me, the most important that you really, really, really want to make sure that you're zeroed in on is more
of your horizontal zero. Okay, so if you're going to what they call the windage, left or right, you want to make sure, if anything, you obviously want the elevation to be zeroed as well. But you can understand that once you get used to this, as long as your windage is pretty close, if you have to hold, you're going to be, I'd rather you hold up or down than left or right. Now, will there be times that you have to hold left or right in a competition when the wind and all that? Absolutely. But just in generalities, if someone asked me, what's more important, left or right, up and down? To me, the most important is getting your windage, the left to right, closer to dead on than the elevation, because you can adjust the elevation, but you can hold a little bit high or whatever. Typically in a competition shoot, you're gonna be able to adjust both windage and elevation, but understand that in a simple terms, if your windage is pretty good and you kind of know there's really very little wind, then no matter what distance you are, you'll be able to quickly kind of figure out your hold up or down. And so for me, what do you guys think in general? Windage versus elevation, what's more important to get right off the bat?
I say elevation, because it's easier, for me at least, it's easier to hold over. When I did that precision class, we did all elevation first and then windage, because windage was easier with the mil dot.
Okay.
And I think that's just what I've learned. That's how I know. And I feel like since the wind's shifting, it's easier just to, if it is shifting, it's easier just to hold that windage over than have to figure out elevation.
I agree with you, but if you haven't gotten that initial windage zeroed, then your holdovers aren't going to be consistent.
We did elevation and then zeroed a little bit for windage, and then we went out and just.
But you put more emphasis on the elevation, is what you're saying?
Yeah, we did more emphasis on elevation, which
got I guess it's more of a personal preference, I guess,
But it got harder once you go out once you run out of mils. For those who have ever ran out of adjustment on their scope, that it gets harder to adjust for windage if you have nothing left when you go through mils.
Clover witnessed me doing that down at Charlie's place. I literally the wind was blowing literally like 35 miles an hour. So I ran out of real estate on the windage and was still holding way off at 1,000 yards, and all that. But yeah, Clover, want to bring you in. Whoever thought you were going to start, go ahead and start that. But also answer me for this, as far as your beliefs. Which is more important to put emphasis on, elevation or windage?
Yeah, probably elevation.
All right. And what were you when I so coldly interrupted you? What were you bringing up here a second ago?
Oh, just the fact that running mil dots. I mean, everybody has their own thing, but a lot of people run BDC and stuff like that, where you've got the little hash marks and stuff. I like having dots up and down and across, and the reason is I've just used it for so long that I don't even see dots. I see it almost as a grid.
Yeah, sure.
And so, like, I can take it and the wind can be blowing. It can be whatever, zeroed at whatever. And if I get a mark shot where I can see, what I'm saying, where I can see it, like I know where it landed in that grid, and I just bring that part of the, what I mean, shoot off the mills, right? I bring that part of the grid down to center, and I mean it's dead to rights at that point.
Yep.
So, but I get. I mean, there's all kind of reticles out there. There's a lot newer stuff. Mil dots, old. It's old school. I get it. But I mean, for me, I'm used to it, and it's really quick. Especially if you're cutting down on pigs and they're running, or things like that are happening. Right? It's really quick for me to adjust it on the fly.
No, I prefer a mil reticle as well. Now, in LPVOs, I love a BDC reticle. I think they're awesome for LPVOs that go up to maybe like 9 magnification or 8 magnification or 10 magnification at the most. I love a BDC reticle. But yeah, for long stuff, I'll go the mil as well. Bring in Chase real quick. More important for you as far as dialing in elevation or windage?
Elevation is your constant.
Yeah.
So you're like what John was saying earlier. Anybody who's ever done any extreme long distance shooting, I don't consider 600 yards long distance shooting. That's just getting warmed up. A lot of people are like 5 or 6 yards is a crazy shot. It's
really
not that difficult.
It's where you easy, yeah.
That's where you start encountering the issues you have at distance.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot more that goes into it than just a regular zero. You know, your environment is affected and where you zeroed, your temperature, humidity, all that stuff.
100%.
But elevation is your constant. Windage is going to change, and people don't realize windage is totally different at the point where you're shooting at 300 yards, 600 yards, 1,000 yards plus. That's why your elevation is so important to be on, because it is your constant. Once you run out of elevation, I can dope the wind all day because I'm using much more advanced reticles. I mean, it's still the mill there's still the mill system. They're just much more advanced, much more accurate systems than an old school mill dot. But you can use those as holdovers, and you can use those to make your calls. Whereas if your elevation's off, you're never going to make that shot.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm over here real quick. Marcus says that he used mill dot for long range. However, the ACSS reticle does make me lazy. I am not a big fan of the ACSS reticle. I'm just not. Maybe I'm crazy about that. If I'm not using a mill for long range, I'm using LPVOs. I'll use, but most of the time I like dots. I love circle dots. Maybe that's why I like the BDC also. Is kind of reminds me of a circle dot. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of those. But anyways, yeah. Welcome Chicago, Mike. What's going on, man? We're talking zeroing right now. So first of all, I want to say what we're talking in generalities for rifles, whether it's AR or bolt action. Do you have like a general distance that you typically like to zero at?
Well, how's it going, gentlemen? Can y'all hear me?
Yep, hear you fine.
All right. Well, for me, I started at, like indoor, like at 25 yards for zeroing. Like on a regular AR-15.
Right.
Now on a like a bolt action rifle, I would say my average would start at 100 yards just because it's going to be like your first time.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I would choose a Vortex Venom for my first scope. Now that I don't know how to zero in on a scope, but I will learn to, and I will do some research on how to zero that.
Okay.
But for me that would be more easier on the AR-15 than really on a pistol.
We're not even talking pistols yet at this point. We're just talking, ARs and bolt actions right now. We'll get into handguns here in a little bit, but 100 yards. That's like I said, that's probably a pretty safe. Anyone that's out there starting, I would probably say the 100-yard zero is probably the best way to start, and you can always change with different things. Let's see here, Chris. I'm bring you in real quick. As far as elevation versus windage, what's more important for you to get right?
I mean, for me, it's elevation. But I don't really have a dog in this fight. Like I said, I very rarely shoot past 100 yards. It's just, it's just not my thing. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's cool. It's just not something that I get into. But
I'm more impressed that everyone's ganging up and telling John that he's wrong. That's ultimately what I really care about. Is he's the only one that says that windage is the right way to go. I'm just joking, John. But no, I hear what you're saying. So. If you're not going to push out much more than 100 yards, then, you can probably just worry. You're going to be able to, like I said, get on paper, depending on if you're trying to do precision or not. If you're just trying to get shots on paper, you can figure out holds and all that. But, Snob, I don't think I come to you as far as elevation versus windage, have I?
No, I don't shoot in the wind, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Oklahoma doesn't have wind. Yeah, you ban it, don't you? You live in a bubble. Yeah.
I guess elevation. I don't know. I'm kind of like Chris. I don't have a dog in this, but I do shoot farther than that, but I've never thought about it.
Yeah. I hear you.
I'm no professional shooter. I can promise you that.
Oh, I hear you. It's just one of those things where I think that windage versus elevation, pick one. Ultimately, pick one. You obviously want to get both of them as accurately as you can. Understand that it's for me, and it's just for me. And John, obviously,
might tell you it's easier for him to hold over laterally with windage. For me, it's easier to hold up or down, as long as I know that my windage is pretty good. Now, obviously, you're going to have to hold over in competition and all that. And what Chase was saying is very important, guys, as well. What your wind is doing at your rifle muzzle and what it's doing 1,000 yards down range or a mile or whatever you're talking, 600 to a mile, could be completely different as well. I mean, you might the first 100 yards you're shooting might be lined by trees, so it's cutting some of that wind down. But once you out past that tree line at 300 yards out to 1,000, there's nothing to stop that wind typically. So maybe that's the situation. You kind of have to know where you're shooting, what the landscape is. I know it's kind of daunting if you're a beginner out there, but there is a certain distance that you have to start taking into effect. The humidity, the curvature of the earth, and that is a thing, especially for like hyper long distance shooting and ultra long, whatever they call it. I think it's called ultra long shooting, long distance shooting. The curvature of the earth. We can talk with Charlie about that. It's amazing when you're talking about going out 2-3 miles that some of these guys are shooting for the world records. Literally, humidity and curvature of the earth is more important than wind at that point. It's crazy, but that is a big thing.
Well, something that's going to affect it too is what I said earlier. If you zero in on a sled, and this is really more for when you get out longer range, so a couple hundred yards probably not going to make a lot of difference. But especially if you're talking range, that lateral movement, your windage, your left and right. So if you're shouldering that rifle or you're canting the rifle one way or another in a little bit, right? Like at range, that's going to affect your left or right. And, if you don't have that rifle level, if you zeroed it level and then when you shoulder it, it's canted left or right a little bit, is what I'm saying. Yeah. It's gonna have a tendency to want to go that way a little more.
Yeah. And one thing we need to also say is, it sounds crazy, not all 223, 556 are the same. Not all 308, not all 6.5 Creed, not all of these. Their ammo is different. And if you're using, let's just take, at 223, if you're using a 55 grain versus a 75 grain, you can't zero your rifle with a 55 grain and expect it to be the same with a 75 grain projectile.
Well, you can go different than that. If you're buying, let's just say, 55 grain Federal, whatever, and then you switch to a 55 grain Wolf, what I mean? Like, maybe 2 totally different points of impact.
Now, excuse me. Typically, if you're running 55 grain 223, no matter the brand, it's going to be close enough. Now, unless you're running ultra precision stuff, it's going to be close enough. Oh, yeah. But understand, switching from different grain weights in the same ammo is going to change that zero. So I suggest people out there, when you are zeroing your rifles or anything really, try to typically use the ammo that you would typically run in that weapon. If you're going, let's say a 9mm handgun, we're getting ready to transition to the handguns. If you're going to zero something with, and you're going to plan on carrying that, and you're going to use, let's say, defensive carry hollow points at 147 grain, well, the best thing for you to do is not to zero that with 115 grain, full metal jacket ammo. It's going to be a little bit different and all of that. So that's going to be an easy transition. So we're going to start with Chris. Chris, do you run optics on your handguns?
About 90% of them, yep.
All right. So you're one of the weird ones. All right.
Not a savage.
Well, that's up to debate. But so with a red dot on your handguns, what distances are you typically zeroing those dots at?
They're all zeroed at 15 yards.
15 yards. Now, for someone out there like myself who's not digging the dots, is that for competition, or is there a specific reason that you've chosen 15 yards, or is that kind of like the staple 100-yard zero with the rifle?
For me, it's competition. So even like my PCC, I've got it sighted in at 15 yards. So any of my USPSA matches I go to, everything's going to be 25 yards or less. So if I'm zeroed at 15 yards, as long as I'm shooting good, I'm not going to have a problem hitting the A zone on a target.
Right.
So it just kind of became rule of thumb for me was just sight all my red dots in at 15 yards with on the pistols. And then the PCC, I do the same thing just because I'm shooting a pistol course with a PCC. But yeah, 15 yards works perfect for me. Because even when I'm at the gun range, I never take a shot past 25 yards with my handgun. So
yeah. Who else in this is a weirdo that runs dots on their handguns? I know Snob does. So Snob, I'll start with you the next. What distance do you typically zero your dots on your pistols?
I used to always do 25, but I can't tell any difference. Of course, I'm 99% of the time I'm shooting steel, but I'm hitting it perfectly fine. And I've been zeroing at 15 lately. It's just, there's literally no difference really. And I can shoot out to 100 yards with like my X5 Legion. It's zeroed at 25 and I shoot it at 100 yards, shooting my silhouette target quite often.
Yeah.
No issues.
So now you're talking changing from 25 to 15, typically using, steel and all of that. When you're shooting, obviously you're not doing it for competition. So when you start getting out to like 50 yards on a 15-yard zero, this is for anyone that uses it, is there a typical hold or do you have to, aim a little low or anything?
Like I said, I've shot my X5 a bunch at 100 yards, and it's got a 25-yard zero, and there's no holdover. It just
so it's just you just aim center
really
mass. It's going to hit it's going to hit the steel somewhere.
It's going to hit the steel center mass in the silhouette.
Yeah. Now for pistols, and this is just me, and I don't run dots typically. I've got a couple that have dots on there, but typically I don't run dots on my handguns. But most of my handguns I get and I use for concealed carry and all that. So I'm one of the weird ones that my thought process, you use a B-52 target, which is the basic silhouette target that you see, and you're out anywhere out to 25 yards, 50 yards, whatever you want. I'm not worried about putting bullets through the same hole with a handgun. I'm more worried about defensive. So I want to make sure that I am on target, which means I hit that silhouette. So I personally am not, maybe that's what reason why I don't typically use dots. I never have. I've always learned on irons and open sights. I'm more worried about getting shots in a silhouette. So as long as I'm hitting a silhouette, or like Snob says, as long as I can go up to 100 yards and I'm hitting that steel, I'm going to be able to hit that threat and all that. Chase, Mike, John, do any of you guys run dots on your pistols?
Oh, I hate them. They're terrible.
Yeah.
No, I run dots too. I mean, I'm not like exclusively a dot guy, but I'm like what Snob's saying. I don't see too much of a difference at, generally a 25-yard zero. I can, especially on like a 9mm.
Yeah.
I can run anything from, right on top of me to 100 yards with no ill effect.
Yep. Now, when we start talking different calibers, 45, 10mm, and all that, that obviously will change things a little bit.
45 won't shoot 100 yards. It just falls to the earth at like 15
Well,
yards,
you can,
so.
If you listen to all those people, sure.
You can listen to G-Webs and just say, just aim it and lob it in there, have it land on top of their head. That'd be kind of a cool thing,
One of the biggest reasons too that I zero my pistols at 15 yards, because like we go back and I was telling you that I zero off of a sandbag or shooting bag, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
The benches at the range where I do 90% of my shooting are 15 yards from the target. So I will get zeroed off the bag at 15, and then once I'm standing up, and shooting, then I'll fine tune that dot to, whatever you want to call it, my bad habits or, but that's another big reason for me why. But like we were saying about 15 to 25, there's really no difference in it for a red dot on a pistol. So I just do 15 because that's where the bench is. So
yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
I just had a quick question for the other guys that aren't savages and run dots on their handgun. I always, and this is just how I zero it. I just had a question if this is what they do or what do they do. But like I'll throw a dot on and just slave it over the irons, and a lot of times I'll shoot quite a bit before I ever put it on a bench and actually zero. And a lot of my guns I've even actually put on a bench and zero, just my carry guns mainly and a few others. But does anybody else just slave it and go? Because it's normally right on.
I was gonna ask you, like, typically, for you guys that do run dots on your pistols, we were talking earlier about with rifles, most optics come kind of already pretty much zeroed from the manufacturer and all of that. Typically, with dots on pistols, do they come kind of pre-zeroed from the manufacturer? And if so, do you guys, is it a 15 or 25 yard typically zero, or what?
I personally have never had one that I couldn't get on paper with it right off the bat at 15 yards.
Okay.
It tends to Swamp Fox, Holosun, they tend to be pretty close to bullseye at 15 yards. You get into some of your other ones like ADE, they vectors, some of those can be a little bit more off, but they're always, within a 4 to 5 inches, I would say.
Yeah. Clover, you had something?
Oh, you're talking about, caliber making a difference. So the majority of optics that I have run and do on handguns is 22.
Yeah.
But even with that, like I can zero at like 25 yards, which is like for like a bullseye match or something like that, let's say. And whether we're talking scope, optic or scope or red dot.
Yeah.
And typically, even like at a 6-inch piece of steel at 100 yards, I mean, my hold is like the top of the target. You know what I mean? The steel, like the hanger or something. The biggest challenge when you're talking about a handgun is you pull that trigger the least little bit to the left or right, and you're going to miss.
Oh yeah,
like the elevation is the worst of your concern. Like the windage is a massive thing with a handgun.
Yeah, well, it's because you're very rarely ever going to have any stability to that. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
if you're trying to shoot offhand or especially one-handed in some competitions, I mean, it's brutal.
But
now, if you're on bags or a rest, it's not bad.
Now, and Chris, you shoot competition as well. And my experiences with single-handed shooting and competition, they're running at like 7 to 10 yards maximum on a lot of those. You don't see very rarely 25 yard shot single hand. Now, I'm not saying they don't, but typically if you're having to run a one-handed stage, they're relatively close targets to where you're not having to worry about a 25 yard target one-handed. I'm sure there are some, but typically I have not seen many that are outside 10 yards or so. Chris, what are your experiences on that?
With one-handed shooting?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'm not real good with a handgun. But most competitions I'm shooting.
That's why you shoot your PCC, huh?
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. So that's just something I've had to practice with a lot, is switching shoulders, and I've gotten a lot better at it. But it's definitely something I practice a lot, because every match you're going to have to do it at least once. You're going to have to switch shoulders.
Yep.
So.
Mike, bring you in here. We're talking handguns now. Do you run dots in your handguns? I think you said earlier you do.
Me personally, 0%. No.
Okay.
Just iron sights.
Irons, open sights, absolutely. I like you already.
Yeah, I like the fact that when you're, let's just say, if you're buying like another pistol for competition, like me, I want to, like, my next purchase would be a Beretta 92X. The Beretta 92X already has like a red fiber optic on it, and the rear sights are all black.
Yep.
So that's perfect for me.
Yep.
That red fiber optic will let you know that it's basically already zeroed in. So when I'm like for me, when I'm shooting, like, I shoot production. So when I'm shooting, I always make sure, I always count on okay, I got 10 rounds in this mag, and then I always look at how many targets that I got to shoot on one side how many targets I got to shoot on the other side. Normally, they're like in between 5 to 15 yards ish on my end when I'm shooting competition in local matches. So if I'm shooting at a target at like, let's say like 12 yards, you know, my aim is not that great, but at the same time I'm getting a little better at it because of the fact that I'm only shooting iron sights, but with a red dot, I know my aim is going to be completely off because of the fact that I have to make sure that red dot is like zero back in once I'm like, once I pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And,
I'm not going to lie, bro. I'm just joking with you, but you don't know me real well. But I'm just joking. But I'm going to say this to say that not being a very good aimer isn't very good for being a competition shooter. Just saying.
You're right. You're
Just
right.
messing with
No,
you.
I believe
it's a joke.
No. It's all good. It's all good. Look, I was told that when I first started doing competition, so it's all good.
You'll get better, and the great thing about competition is it forces you to kind of get better quickly at different things. For those of you guys out there that are running dots on their handguns, I know it's dependent upon the optic itself, but preference level, do you guys like doing an absolute co-witness, or do you like a lower third co-witness, or what do you guys like? We'll start with Chris on this one. Absolute co-witness or like a lower third co-witness?
For me, it's absolute.
Okay. So what we're talking about, guys, is if you're out there, an absolute is the dot on that dot on your handgun. You want to basically dot the eye, if you will, on the front post, the front sight. So it kind of looks like you're literally dotting the eye, sitting right on top of that. The lower third, that front post is going to be in the lower third of your optic. The dot will be above it, if you will. And it's a personal preference. Either one's fine. But if you're buying an optic for your handguns, you just need to make sure what that dot is supposed to be run with, whether it's an absolute or a lower third. So yeah, John, do you run dots, don't you?
I just started running dots.
Okay, so do you like the absolute co-witness or a lower third if you had to choose one?
Lower third. I'm a big fan of the lower third now.
Okay, yeah. Snob, you have a lot of dots. Do you like an absolute or lower third? As far as the visual.
I do not want the sights in my window, really, just barely at the bottom.
Yeah. I guess if that's something that you start out with, to me, it's just weird. Like to me, it's almost like more of a hassle to worry about if that dot's sitting right on top of that front sight. It's like, oh my gosh. So I like the lower third as well. Chase, what about you?
I'm a lower third guy, and it doesn't matter if it's a handgun or like an aim point on an AR or whatever. I like lower third in general.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big lower third too. Like I said, I think that Clover, you might like an absolute for especially like 22 precision.
None of the above.
None of the above. What do you like then?
You're talking about a composition setting, and I'm signed up in an optics division, and even if my sight went bad, I'm screwed because you're not going to be able to switch divisions in the middle of a match. So I don't even bother with I strip, like my bookmarks that have optics, they're stripped. I mean, smooth barrel, smooth top plate. Yeah. Yep.
So you almost refuse to use optics on your handguns at all, period.
What do you mean?
You don't like to run optics in general. You don't like you're starting to like you've got a couple, but
outside
you generally
outside of a competition,
you typically do not.
I really don't. Yeah, I really don't. Now I'm not opposed to it, and it's moving that way. And probably sometime this year I'll have to start dipping my toe into it a little bit. But but currently, no, it's all competition settings. So if it goes down, it goes down. I just lose a match or whatever. It's not life or death.
Yeah. Once you go dot, you can't go back.
Right.
I think that's why I am. That's why I am very hesitantly getting into the handgun dot game because I'm afraid I'm going to like it, and that's just more toys I'm going to have.
It gets expensive.
I know that's the problem. That's the problem.
And one of the things about buying a handgun is that some of them, you will have to remove the rear sights in order to put the red dot on. And that's what I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah, I mean, some of you go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I thought that too. But to be honest, I could care less if it has a rear sight on it. I could care less if it has any sight on it, to be honest. Even a defensive handgun, you don't need them. You got that window,
you
even
really
if your window's blocked, your optic's gone, you're still going to hit center mass.
Point shooting. Yeah.
Point shooting. Yeah. I mean,
100%. It's point shooting.
And to this very day, inside probably 10 yards, maybe at least 7 yards. In a self-defense, when I'm practicing, I very rarely even use my sights at that point. You've done so many shots with muscle memory. You're gonna if you've been decent enough for a long time, your muscle memory is gonna get that gun up in a spot that probably inside 10 yards. You're gonna hit the silhouette without even coming close.
You're gonna hit where your thumbs are pointing.
Absolutely,
no problem. And you know, I've had a lot of people say, well, you know, blah blah blah, and you take a piece of blue masking tape and put it over the rear sight on a iron sight or right over the optic and still shoot at 10 yards, and you're still going to hit the silhouette with every one of your shots.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. 100%. There's a great question out here for Marcus. He says, what zero do you guys zero your ARs with iron sights? With older eyes, let me do 50 yards. So I'll tell you this much. It sounds weird, but I match my irons to whatever my optic is. So the rifles that I use, the 36 yard zero with my optic, I will also zero the irons at 36 yards as well. Typically, and the ones that I use, the 5,200 yard zero, I will zero the irons at the 50 yard zero as well. Now, in generalities, I probably think the 50 yard zero is a great zero for irons just in general, because once again, you're going to be able to hit it 50 and the 200 in the same spot basically, and everything in between that is going to be relatively easy to hit. So I suggest personally a 50 yard, but I match whatever my optic is zeroed at, I match my irons with. Does anybody else do that, or just throw it out there? What do you guys zero your irons at?
Yeah, I tend to match.
Yeah.
Because if you're in the field, right? I mean, I see why some people would want, like, if you had some kind of 45-degree offset irons or something. I mean,
sure.
I can see that, right?
Closer shots or whatever. Yeah.
But if you're talking about a situation where you're going to have to yank the optic, I mean, your optic's failed or something, and you got to, I mean, it for me, it needs to be consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Chris, go ahead.
Run through the room, because this kind of changed what I got. Kind of changed. It adds to this, but it's not.
Okay. Let's just start with Chris then. Iron sights. What do you typically zero your iron sights, or do you zero your iron sights? Or do you even have iron sights?
I don't even have iron sights on any of my carbines, rifles, nothing. No, it's terrible.
So if your optic goes out for some reason, you're screwed for the most part.
Spray and pray.
I understand. Yeah.
I'm the same way. I don't even have iron sights on my rifles either.
There you go. John, what about you? What do you typically zero your irons at if you do have irons?
If I have irons, I zero them the same as the optic, but I've been in a class where my optic has shut off and I just keep point shooting through the optic.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
That's on a pistol, John, not on a rifle.
No, we're talking.
I've done it on a rifle.
We're talking rifles right now. Yeah, iron sights on the rifle on an AR. Chase, what about you on an AR rifle? First of all, do you have irons? And two, what do you zero those things at, or do you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got basically every one I have has irons on it, be it backup iron sights or just strictly irons. I've got some old A2s and stuff. On the old A2s and things, it's the old school 25-meter Battlefield Zero, because I have the A2 adjustments on them. On stuff with optics, I match the optics. So if I'm running a 25-meter Battlefield Zero, or if I'm running the 50-yard rule or whatever, it's going to be matched.
Right. Snob, what about you?
Just match it.
Match it. Okay. Yeah. I think that's probably the safest way. Once again, if you're zeroing your irons and you're trying to, like I said, matching the optic zero
what it does is basically, if you do it right, and for some reason your optic, the battery goes down, it breaks, whatever, it just stops working, and you have to go to irons. You don't have to worry about adjusting anything. If they're zero the same, then you're not going to have to worry about adjustments and all that. So Clover, you were going to bring up something maybe almost like a palate cleanser, or at least an extension of this conversation.
Yeah, no, we started talking irons. We started talking irons, and so this gets into a very important part of irons. Is what hold do you prefer in irons? Do you prefer a 6 o'clock, a sub, a combat, a center? I mean, what kind of sight picture, right?
Yeah. Typically, I like a center post, one that's going to be kind of like right. If you're talking about center post, you're talking about like right in the middle.
No, I'm talking about where you hold on the target.
Like I'll always hold it right in the center. That's what I typically like to do.
Like you line, like your rear, front and rear are straight across.
Are straight across, correct.
And you center it into the target.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
That's how I like to use.
You're
irons.
probably
that's also how I learned how to shoot irons.
Okay. You're talking combat hold. So combat hold. Yes, I am. Combat hold is a little different than center hold. Is a little bit lower than combat hold.
Okay, right? I'm talking combat hold.
So you're talking combat hold.
That's how I learned, for obvious reasons. That's how I learned to shoot the M16A2.
So for defensive, yes, I like a combat hold because that's a true hold, right?
Yeah.
And then for competition or for longer range, and that's typically because the targets, even at a shorter range, when you're talking handguns especially, if you're talking a bullseye competition, you've got the bullseye is the width of a 22, for example, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's very, very small. And so if you try to do a combat hold or even a center hold on that, you're covering up part of the target, right?
I get that.
So
yeah,
it's
100%.
The same way,
yeah.
Same way if you're talking at 100 or 200 yards with an AR and iron sights, that post can cover your target, right?
Yeah.
So a lower hold for me is more optimal depending on the visual size. I don't know how to explain
Is it like a lower third? Or when you talk about a lower hold, like how much below center are you talking?
So if we're talking an AR-15 with irons at 100 yards, right? So you've got the center X, which you take the standard silhouette target, right?
Sure. Yep.
And you've got, what is it, 3? You've got that center ring that's like the X, the 9, and the 8 maybe or something. So I usually go like right below that, everything level, and then right below that. So kind of like a 6 o'clock hole, but it's not 6 o'clock on the silhouette. It's 6 o'clock on center mass, right?
I got you. So on that 10 ring, the bottom of it. Are you talking like the bottom of the 9 or the 8?
More like on about the 8 ring.
Okay.
I'll have to pull up a target.
I got you. No, I hear what you're saying.
What is that?
The B52.
Yeah. I thought that was right. I was like, that's a freaking plane. But
it is a plane. Yes, it is.
Let me look at it real quick. B52 target. Bring it up.
Just look at your text.
Oh yeah, the 9. Go. So the 9. So yeah.
The 9 ring. Okay, so you hold the bottom of the 9 ring. Okay, I got you. Okay.
And I've got a little more play, right? With the. I mean, you're shooting for center mass, and 9's good enough.
So let's go around the room. Let's start with Mike. And so what kind of sight picture are you looking for? What kind of hold are you looking for with your iron sights? Are you looking for a combat, whatever Clover's calling a combat, or a center or a lower? What are you looking for? Like when you line up your irons, are you trying to go rear sights, front sight, and middle of the target all aligned into one? Is that what you're looking for, or what?
Yeah, pretty much. Just all centered. Have iron sights like in the front and rear, just all centered for me.
Okay. Yeah. Chase, go to you. What are you kind of looking for when you're talking with irons? What sight picture are you looking for?
Yeah, honestly, it depends on the platform and the distance, but it's either going to be a combat or a center.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the text. So I've never heard of the combat versus center. I always thought it was kind of a center, but so the base what you're saying is in the combat, you're just splitting the fucking pie and everything. The center hold, you're taking the top of the front sight just below the point of impact, right?
So take a round target.
Yeah.
Divide it in half horizontally. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So you got a round circle. It's cut in half. You got two halves of the pie, right? Top half, bottom half. Okay. So yeah, Snob just put it up. The combat, the front dot is in dead center. With a center hold, the level line across the dots is dead center, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And then with a 6 o'clock, you'd just be up below the bullseye.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then with a sub, you would be just below the entire target in that picture. That would be called a sub, where the entire circle is sitting on that front sight.
Now, I definitely understand the value of at least a center hold, if not the sub hold, for competition when you're talking about trying to be able to see that.
Yeah, you got to be able to see your shots, right?
Yeah.
You want to be able to see your shots.
And maybe that's why I've always used a combat when I was taught that way. But there's a reason why. It's a combat. You're not trying to be precise. You're just trying to center mass it and hit that target, and however you get wherever you got to hit it. So
with that center, with even a center hold, because imagine a center hold and you hit a little low, right?
Yeah.
With the center or the combat in a competition setting, you're going to have to break form and stuff. You know what I mean, to see your shots.
Well, and you're also talking about this is if you go with a center hold or even a sub hold, but you zero it that way, then you won't be missing low.
Right. True.
So yeah.
Yeah, but if you forget, or depending on what
this is true.
But here's the thing. You can see if you're talking about defensive use. I typically will do a center hold, combat hold, because either one of those is close enough. Let's be honest. Yep. Like once either of the three you're seeing on the screen will get it done from a defensive use.
Yes, you're worried at that point in a defensive use. You're literally worried about ending the threat, not putting bullets through the same hole.
Yeah, as long as you don't have that center dot way high or way low, like you're good. You're good to
go. Guys, throw it out there. Which of those three, throw it out there. What do you guys prefer as far as your sight picture?
Dot the eye.
Dot the eye. Okay, so you're more of a center hold kind of a guy.
I like the 6 o'clock.
Oh, the 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I like right on top.
I like the center hold. That's my go-to.
Okay.
Center hold for me.
Nice. John, Chase, do you have a preference on the three of them?
I'm center hold, but I wish I had the stuff. It all depends on the iron sights for me, really.
Yeah.
Because when I was teaching youth riflery, the air guns all have different sights on them. And it all depends on how the hold is for what the sight is actually on some of them. Yeah. And some of them have like the circle. If you've seen them, they're just a circle.
Target globes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it all depends on that. But for me, for pistol, it's center hold.
Yeah.
Or target globes or peep sights, right? You just got where instead of having dots on either side, right? So or ghost ring or whatever, right? You've got a circle. And then you line the center post up in the center of that circle and then put it where you need to put it, right? And then when he's talking about globe, which is more of a competition site, you have circles inside a circle, right? So you would have a circle around the outside of this target, and then you would have another inner circle that you would line up, and you would want equal distance on all sides of that circle. You feel what I'm saying? And then center that up over the black spot, just to kind of explain what John was talking about. Did I get too FUD on everybody? Apparently. Okay.
Well said. I'll give you that.
No.
You explained what I said.
No, you didn't.
I was muted. Sorry.
I love target sights. Like target sights are freaking amazing. Like you cannot get any more precision than target sights.
Oh yeah. Now just to mess with Trey, you have to do the vernier tang sight now.
Shut the hell up, dude.
I'll let you do that. You go ahead.
Just stop.
I'm fudded out for the evening. So.
We'll do that. We'll do that after.
You're gonna send me to the hospital with rashes and all of that.
Hey, that is like original OG precision sight, man.
Once again, you're going to send me to the hospital with rashes.
As long as it is not a semi-buckhorn rear, the semi-buckhorn.
I love a buckhorn rear sight.
I know you probably do, but I can kill a deer with one. But as far
He's
as
from Oklahoma, of course he does.
Like semi-buckhorn just throws me for a loop.
Yeah,
I'm not a buckhorn fan either. It's okay.
I've never.
It's
never
functional.
Heard of that sight.
All right, so let's run through the room real quick and kind of do this question. The most important thing that if you were to give advice to someone who's new that's asking you about zeroing, what's the most important thing that you would want someone to know about zeroing? I'll start with Mike. What's the most important thing that you need someone who's a beginner to understand about zeroing?
For a pistol or rifle?
In general, 0 is 0. What's the most important thing that you would make sure that someone that you're teaching understands about zeroing?
For me, I would say get a resting bag, and I would say just if someone wants to start off zeroing an indoor, for me it'll be either a tripod or a resting bag. Use a tool to zero out where your shots is at. Like I would say, start off at like 5 shots at least 20 yards. And if you're shooting at least 5 shots at 20 yards, I'm like, okay, if your shots are aiming to the right, use those shots first, and center the red dot on where those shots going to be at, if that makes sense. I'm not much of a teacher. I can't really teach someone how to center in a red dot, but that would be.
Well, I'm not worried about red dots, man. I'm just in general,
like
zeroing. Just zeroing in general. Yeah. Let's go with Clover. What's you've done this a ton of times with kids and all that over the years, but what's the most important thing that you want to make sure that someone gets the general idea about a zero?
Basically, go slow and take your time, right? Yeah. Realize that it's point of aim equals point of impact, right?
That's the goal. That's the goal. Yes.
It's a very simple concept. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't do it. And if you take your time, you're going to figure, you'll get it figured out. The calmer you are about it, the more methodical you are about it. Like, right, if you have to, if you're afraid you're not going to remember, you adjusted 8 clicks left or whatever, take you a notepad and write that down every time you make a click adjustment.
That's what I was going to say.
And if you need to back it up, you don't got to waste another round. You can just reach up there and it's 8 clicks, and you're back to where you should be, right? Yeah. So I guess that, and then if we're talking about magnified optics, especially.
Sure.
Keep in mind that point of aim versus point of impact, when you start talking about zooming the magnification, that point of impact will likely shift a little bit. So
that's a question that I forgot to bring up. I had on my list. I totally skipped over it. Let's run through this real quick. Let's say a magnified optic. Let's say either an LPVO or just we're not talking about a fixed magnification, just a variable magnification. For bolt action, I always zero mine on the highest magnification. What do you guys do as far as when you have a magnified or a variable magnified optic? What magnification do you typically zero in? Is it the highest magnification, the lowest, somewhere in the middle, or what? That's open for anybody.
I go lowest.
You go lowest? Yeah. Anyone?
I don't crank up my magnification any more than I need. Now, keep in mind, most of my precision stuff is all first focal plane anyway, and that's a story for another day.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in another one. As a matter of fact, tomorrow night, go check out Chris. Chris is doing a live chat tomorrow night, and we're gonna be talking optics. And I'm sure second focal plane will come up. I'm assuming.
I'm sure.
So we'll dive into that one.
If you're talking about focal plane, Chase is right. So I never shoot at my maximum magnification.
Neither do I.
To me, max magnification. Let's say you have it's a 4-24. Odds are I'm never going to get past 16 or something with a shot. I'm never going to do that. So the other ones are for scanning, right? And for spotting. and I'll run it up for that and then run it back down. So let's say that my effective range of use in that is 4 to 16, right? I will usually zero somewhere around halfway in between.
Around 12-ish or so.
Yeah.
I was gonna piggyback off of what Clover said, because that was something that
don't do that. He doesn't need to be an ego boost here.
Well, that was something that I really struggled with when I first
piggybacked off Chase, so it's all good.
Shooting scopes was I thought that I had to have, they got a 6 to 24. I gotta have that, and I'm cranking that thing all the way up. And then the more that, the more I shot and the more I got into guns, I realized, like, man. So
I thought you were gonna say you're cranking all the way up and your target's like jumping all over the screen.
Right.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, unfortunately, magnification also magnifies your movements and errors that you make.
Every breath you take.
Yep.
Yeah. I typically like for my long range rifle, it's a 6 to 24. I will zero it at the 24 magnification, but I have never gone above probably 16 or 18 in a competition, all the way out to 1,400 yards or whatever, So I zero it at the maximum, but I don't ever use maximum. So Snob. First of all, was going to kind of do both questions. I'm going to ghost you here. What magnification on like a scope do you usually zero? And then more importantly, what's the most important piece of advice to give to someone who's learning about zeroing?
I typically use the minimum magnification. Now, sometimes on like a 1 to 6 or something, I'll crank it up to 2 or 3, but I typically use the minimum like on a 4 to 12. 4 to 12 is kind of my go-to power on a bolt action. And I like just zeroing at 4 because that's plenty powerful for 100 yards.
Sure.
And most important thing you tell someone, figure out a way that works for you to zero it, play around with it, do it a bunch, and enjoy it. And take your time and count your clicks. Don't just do like me and just say, just get up 3 inches and just grab it.
Yeah.
You'll pick up that habit the best.
A lot of the optics, the scopes that are variable, especially for the variable magnification, but a lot of scopes these days will have, a lot of the modern ones will have a zero stop, to where wherever you're dialing, it'll, once you set your zero, you can kind of sit it there where you turn it and you turn it all the way back and it'll go back to your original zero. That's a nice thing to have. I like the idea about saying whatever you like, however you choose to zero your optics, figure out what works best for you, and don't let anyone, as long as it works, don't let anyone tell you that you're doing it wrong. I mean, that's pretty good advice. Find a system that works for you and utilize it. Chase.
But I like telling people they're wrong.
Yeah.
Well, because everyone is wrong compared to you. So
this is true.
Yeah. And remember, like most optics do have the little bump, notch, screw, something that marks their optimum magnification power.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's generally the sweet spot that's going to make it easy for general usage, zero, whatever.
Yep, absolutely. John, bring you in. What's the biggest piece of advice that you want people to understand when it comes to zeroing?
Don't chase the round. Shoot for group, and then adjust. That's the biggest thing I saw when teaching kids is they chase around the round trying to fix it. Just shoot for group and then learn from there.
That's more important if you're not shooting from a rest, I think.
Right. If you're shooting prone or offhand,
100%. Yeah.
Yep. But in generalities, it's a good thing as well, because there are going to be people, especially beginners, or I should say maybe beginners, but more inexperienced shooters in the zeroing side of things.
Oh, I've seen people.
They're going to get upset that they're missing 6 inches to the left and thinking they're doing something wrong. Hold center mass and try to get good groupings, and then figure out, was it a flyer or is that where it's supposed to be or where it needs to be adjusted? Go ahead.
Well, I've even seen, I'm not necessarily going to say newbies, but I've seen people take a rest and they'll lean on it or they'll lean into it or they'll, you know what I mean? And that's going to affect your shot. Like the whole point of the rest is you're not really supposed to be holding it at all.
No,
all
you're
doing is
pulling the trigger. Yep.
I mean, I've seen kids shoot clovers and then there's
really?
Yeah.
I wish they would. I'm sorry.
Well, I've seen them shoot, clover size real tight groups, but they're 6 inches off to the right.
And they get upset about it.
They get upset and you go, no, look, you shot a perfect group. All we got to do is figure out what you're doing and adjust it.
Yep.
And it may be,
and a lot of times you're not doing anything. It's just just where the optic is zeroed. It's pointing.
Well, they could be canning the rifle, right? They could be. It could be something with their form or their trigger pull that is consistent. It's off, but it's consistent.
That is something we didn't bring up, and that's something that I always use. I don't know if you guys do, but the little magnetic levelers. I always try to put a leveler on top of my rifle when I'm zeroing to make sure that I'm not canting a little bit, because sometimes you may not realize you're canting a couple degrees, and that does change everything. Chris, bring you in. What, as far as a piece of advice for someone that's getting into the zeroing game, what's the biggest piece of advice you can give?
I mean, personally, I would kind of like what John was saying, just kind of keep it simple, get that group, and then adjust. Because, I mean, we covered a lot of stuff over 2 hours time, and you start talking about trajectory and all that. I mean, it can get really complicated real quick. I think the best thing to do is just pick a distance you want to zero at that distance, start getting your shots, and then, move on from there, really. I mean.
Well, and if you're unable to get a group, something is wrong, and you'll never be able to sight it in if something is wrong.
Yeah.
So like you got a loose mount, or something weird. It's you're talking about an issue with the bedding, or maybe one of the stock screws is loose, or there could be any number of things, and you're getting inconsistent groups. Like you'll never. I mean, they're both.
I ran into that in my very first long
crap
range.
Ammo does it too.
Or crap ammo, yeah. I ran into that situation in my first match ever, long range match. I didn't realize it, but my my mount had become a little loose, and it threw off. I had to go I had to skip like 2 or 3 stages because I had to go down to the zero range and tighten everything up and put some more Loctite on there and make sure that it was good to go, because I would have one and the spotter was like, dude, you're missing 18 inches left, or next one is 9 inches right, and he's like, well, what the hell, so I had my mount came loose, and I didn't realize it because it wasn't wobbling. It was just a little bit, but just a little bit can change everything. So for me, I'm gonna piggyback. God, I hate doing this. My God, I'm gonna piggyback on Clover, and he brought up something that I think is absolutely crucial, because you're understanding a lot of different things. Write everything down. Go get a dope book, and if you don't know what a dope book is, it's pretty simple. Go find a dope book, or just get a notepad, but understand what ballistics are and how everything is doing. But write down everything, every adjustment that you make, and try to guesstimate. Everyone's got a weather app on their phone. When you go out to zero your rifle, kind of pull up your weather app, and it'll say, okay, well, it's 73 degrees with 7 mile an hour wind from the east, or whatever, and write that down and say, okay, here it is. And if you have to make an adjustment, I went 17 clicks to the left and 14 clicks up, or whatever it is, to get that zeroed. And so you have an idea of that zero, but you're also having that zero under specific weather conditions, because let's admit that what your zero is at 76 degrees with a 5 mile an hour wind is going to be different when it's 43 degrees and a 20 mile an hour wind, obviously, or even a 10 mile an hour wind. I like the idea of writing everything down, because one, you have a base to go back and look at. More importantly, the more you write the stuff down, you'll probably start understanding what you're doing a little bit more. Like if they have a picture of a target, you write your grouping. Okay, so here's my first group, and it was 6 inches left of my point of aim, and you write down, I clicked, I went over 17 clicks, or whatever the click is that you're going at. Write all that stuff down. If you're able to, write it down in crayon. I recommend crayon
because it won't go away in rain, but for other reasons also. Plus, you have snacks. But I love the idea of being able to write that stuff down, because it not only does it give you a point of reference that you don't understand yet, but it also you'll learn a lot from doing that as well. So, do I even want to know what's going on in the back chat? I don't think I do.
Well, go
first.
Oh. The other thing I would suggest is this: do you guys got Stray Lock on your phones?
Oh yeah,
for long distance, it's great. It got everything. For if you're shooting long distance, you can put your load data in. It'll automatically pick up the weather, the humidity, the wind, everything. So if you're getting into that angle of precision, it's spend that. I think this was $11 to get this app and just have everything you need right there in your hand, because it'll tell you adjustments even to your scope.
Yeah,
Stray Lock's good without getting too in depth in the money. If you want to spend a little more and get the super advanced engines, you can get like the Knight's Bullet Flight or get the Applied Ballistic software.
And Applied Ballistic is great. Hornady actually has a decent one. It's free. It's limited, but it's decent. You know what I'm saying?
I just bring my algebra teacher out to the range. It's all good.
I mean, it's literally all you're doing. You're literally doing trig on the range. People just don't realize it.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing to point out here. Like, how many times do you go through high school and it's like people go, "Oh, you'll never use that again. You'll never use that again." If you are into firearms, if you're into guns, be it reloading, precision, long range shooting, all of the stuff we talked about tonight, for sure, you're going to use algebra and geometry, like, every single day.
Yeah.
See, I'm like
mid 2000s.
I use a Kestrel, and that does. If you guys are interested in Kestrels, are kind of a handheld device that'll help you. And those are great. But if you're looking for apps, there's a bunch of just apps you can get, on your phone for free or a very small price. But once you kind of get into maybe a competition, a Kestrel is going to be extremely important for sure. Go ahead.
What's real fun is getting into competition where you're not allowed to use a Kestrel or a rangefinder. That gets real fun.
So that's one of the things that I love about the long range. I'm a math nerd. I'm not very smart, but I can do math. And the whole side of the long range with the math is awesome. It's fun. Like you said, you're doing all sorts of geometry, algebra, trigonometry, calculus. You've got to figure out a lot of stuff, and it's fun. It's fun. That side of it, I think, that's where I kind of really got fun into it. Is that side? Yes, hitting steel at 1,000 yards is fun, but learning how to get to that point, and then kind of doing the formulas and doing all that, and then getting the Kestrel out, and kind of seeing like what did my mathematics and what the Kestrel come up with, like how close is it? And if you do it right, they're going to be pretty damn close. Real quick, Rappin' Alaskan, love the name, by the way. Great stuff, guys. The amount of different videos out there can make things confusing. Just keep things simple and take the time to know your setup. Exactly. The most important thing that I think with zeroing is, before you do anything, you have to make that conscious decision of what are you using that firearm and that zero for. And that's going to help you a lot as to how you're going to zero, what distance you're going to zero, what kind of optic you're going to get, all of that stuff. Before you do anything, kind of make that conscious decision of what you're utilizing that zero for, and that will help a long way. There are a lot of great videos out there. There's a lot of great videos by people on this panel that have done stuff. So, there's a lot of great videos out there and there's going to be a lot of information. Pick one. I will say this: pick one style of, whether it's a 50-yard zero or 100-yard zero or whatever it is, whether it's going to be a 3-shot group, a 5-shot group. Find something that you're interested in, and then go try to find and watch as many videos on that specific type of information and see what people are saying. You never can tell. G-Web's out there real quick says, AR-15 is your introduction to sighting into a rifle's point of aim on a target, whatever. Yeah, he's got over 500,000 views on that. September 16, 2011. He put the link out there. So go check out G's introduction to sighting in a rifle's point of aim on a target video. Knowing G-Webs, he explained it greatly, because he's good with, he's got a gift of gab. So he probably explained it very well.
So
yeah,
I've got a video. I've actually done it twice because I have had to update it. It was one of my best performing videos, and I realized that with the advancements of optics, and I had some questions on the original, right, that I needed to update it. But it was a trick. It was a trick to return your scope to mechanical 0 that I picked up from an old crotchety old timer in a gun shop years and years ago. And just type in Clover.
We talk about Gary. We talking about Gary like that for, man.
Yeah. No kidding. Anyway, hit me up if you can't search it through Clover Tack and Scope or something like that in a search. But so it comes in handy if you pick up a used optic, or maybe if you swap a scope from one rifle to the next, or maybe if you're having issues getting a 0 or whatever, because it's a really quick way. You need a mirror basically and a piece of glass and a flashlight, but it's a really quick way to get that scope back to mechanical 0, which gives you a solid starting point again, right? If we're talking about something that's been on something previous and adjusted all different ways. So,
or especially if it's something that's been on the same rifle, but you haven't pulled it out in a couple of years, and it's maybe been banging them back to the pickup, or whatever. There's all sorts of things that could have happened. Being able to do that even on stuff that hasn't changed rifles, it can help. It can help to a certain extent to see is this scope still functioning right? So let's kind of go through the room, and I want to let everyone have a chance to plug their channels, plug anything they got going on. Let's start with Mike. Mike, you want to plug anything for the channel or what you're doing right now?
I am gonna be doing a review on my Ruger Precision rifle coming soon, so be on the look at that. I cannot wait to show people that, just for somebody to see, and then once I get that, I'll pick out which scope I'm gonna get, do a review on that, and then go out to the long rifle range and do some videos on that as well.
Awesome.
So he'd be making NRA too.
Yes. Is everyone here gonna be at NRAM?
No.
Yes, I'll be there.
Chase doesn't want to go. Chase doesn't want to go, but he's obligated to go.
Are you saying no because you're all the way in the West Coast?
Oh no, I'm all the way on the East Coast, but I'm going because I don't have a choice.
Yeah, he doesn't have a choice. He doesn't go to NRAM. He probably doesn't have a job come Monday. Well, he might. It all depends.
Just fake a lion attack and you'll be fine. That worked for Paul. So
that's true story. That's true. That's my plan. What you talking about?
All right.
Except he's not going to wait till he gets out there to do that. He's going to do it a couple days ahead of time.
I'm going to do it. Come on. I'm going to be like, Elizabeth, I'm coming in the middle of the conference room. It'll be all right.
Chase is going to be the only one that books a fully refundable ticket to Indy of the group. So there's going to be a reason why. Yeah.
Who has like hunting in the area? Who has deers in the area so I can do some deer shooting with somebody?
You can deer hunt next year, but I'm pretty sure deer season's over with. If you want to go to jail, you can come here and deer hunt. But
or you can deer hunt anytime, like in the winter.
Not here, you can't. Not here, you can't.
Can't here either.
I mean, you can. You just can't get.
Maybe in Chicago, but
No, I don't know. They allow deer hunting here. Well, in
probably
Illinois,
not.
Period.
No,
probably not. Illinois, period. I don't think they allow that.
I don't know. I don't know. John and Chris are Ohioans. They might know a little bit about Illinois. I mean, can you deer hunt in Illinois?
I have no idea, but we have a limited season here.
Yeah, ours goes about 2 months, and that's about it.
Yeah. There's some big deer in Illinois, and there's some good hunting in Illinois, but they have a lot of very strict stipulations in Illinois.
Yeah, you can deer hunt in Illinois.
We have way more stricts.
Yeah, I'd say the weirdest state when it comes to hunting is Michigan, because like the state's like split in half between what you can use and what you can't use. And if you're hunting in the north versus the southern part of Michigan, you totally completely different rules, which is very strange to me, but it is what it is. Snob, let's go to you. you're probably not going to do anything. But if you were, like, where can people find you, and what kind of stuff and things are you going to be doing?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do anything, but I do have 2 videos I really need to put out this week if I get them edited.
I understand.
I got a Combat 19 slide from the Free Armory and a Thrive HD pistol optic from Zero Tech Optics.
There you go.
Well, I will say this. I cannot wait to meet all the rest of the old guys and then Ram.
Yeah, we are old for sure.
I'm the youngest person on here, and I'm like, oh man, I'm so excited.
How old are you?
Who you calling old?
How old am I?
Yeah. Are you in your 20s? You're 27?
Yep, 27.
Oh, snap. You are younger than John. Barely, but you are younger than John.
Barely.
I mean, John's really like 4,000 years old because he's a ginger that steals souls. He just pretends he's like less than 30.
Yeah, quit giving my secrets away, damn it.
You think they're secrets?
I am the Highlander.
Yeah, something like that.
You're something, all right.
Are you 50?
I'm sorry?
Are you 50?
No. Damn, do I look that old? Damn.
Close enough.
Shit. I'm close, but I'm not there yet. I'm going to claim, 40s until I can't,
No.
I
even thought Chris just turned 50. I thought.
Come on, man! I just turned 48.
Yeah, Chris and I are about the same age. Gilbert's a couple years younger. Snob's about our age. You're not 48 yet, are you?
I'm not even 40. I just turned 39 Saturday.
The 10th anniversary of your 40th or 35th anniversary. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of us are older, but none of us are 50. I don't think. Snob, you're not 50. So
I mean, speak for yourself, old man.
Yeah, you're not even 40 yet, so
nope. I'm still young and vibrant.
Same age as me. Aren't you like a year younger than me, Chase?
Yeah, I just turned 37.
Oh, you're 2 years younger than me then.
Yeah, you're not 40 yet, Snob?
No, I'm 39.
I thought you were like 42 for some reason. 42 or 43.
I thought 84 model. Snob.
He's trying to kill you faster.
You look 43 or 44, Snob.
Fuck off.
God damn.
Yeah.
Hey, well, you guys gonna have to teach me the game when we all meet. So
what game?
Anything that y'all learned, like back in y'all 20s, really.
Man, you didn't want to know me when I was in my 20s. I'm just saying.
I was a terrible person in my 20s.
You would not want to know me. Well, this is true too, but you definitely would not wanted to know me in my 20s. That's for sure. Very few people, including my wife. My wife probably regrets knowing me in my 20s. So that's what it is.
I know mine does.
The Tactical Reapers out there. What's up, Grim? You got knives out there? Chocolate. Chase, what's going on with EAA? I know you guys have got some awesome things that are going on with the company. Anything you want to maybe talk about real quick and let everyone know what's going on?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
I mean, I'm just going to tell everybody they need to definitely stay tuned come NRAM.
Yeah, boy.
Yes.
There's going to be some new hotness. I can promise you that.
I can't wait to do some interviews with them.
Yeah, it's yeah, I can just NRAM's going to be fire for EAA. Just saying.
There's going to be, trust me, and if you have seen, I know you saw a little bit, but if you had seen all the craziness that has come about in the last couple of weeks, it's even more ridiculous.
Lord have mercy.
I'm gonna need a partner for NRAM. I'm scared. I'm scared for these big shows.
What do you mean?
You're fine, man.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, NRAM is not that bad. I mean, it's an easy show to walk around and do.
It's a lot more laid back than others.
I've been to like small local like gun shows, but
okay, then you're gonna you might get a little overwhelmed, but it's nothing compared to SHOT, so it's still pretty laid back. You'll just have fun with it. I'll just say just have fun with it and go with the flow.
Remember, the big guys are like big companies are there and bigger media is there, but it's a consumer show, so it's geared towards the public, so it's an easy way to approach people because we're in the booth talking to everybody all day. So it's not like SHOT where you have some specific meetings and times and appearances and all that stuff. It's much more laid back.
And sometimes just so they don't have to talk to the general public, If you walk by, they'll literally grab you by the shirt collar and pull you into the media room to sit down and just talk about stuff.
And some people make up glam shots for their booth appearanrances. I'm just saying.
Is true too.
They do.
Yeah.
Is Paul going to be at NRAM? Have we determined this yet?
I can't imagine.
He wants to be there. I'm not sure there. If he does, he's going to be he's going to be the perfect way to advertise one of my new things. He's going to be the greatest old man to show this thing off because he's all feeble and stuff.
I hope he's there. I hope he's there, but I want him to take it easy and just hang out and sit. Just be that.
He needs to chill out. And I mean, he's ready to. His brain is ready to get to it. His body's not.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The thing about it is for me starting off, still new to everything. It's okay, what what am I gonna say once I walk up to one of the booths or one of the favorite companies out I like to shoot firearms with.
Just be yourself.
That's my that's my biggest concern.
Just asking for all the free stuff like Snob does.
Yeah, just say, hey, what are you going to give me for free?
Of each of these.
Yeah.
Works out perfect. And then I throw Clover's name out if that doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, but I know Clover Tech.
That works every time.
It works every time to get thrown out. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Security.
Yeah. The biggest thing, and we can talk about this later on, but the biggest thing is be yourself. Yeah. Don't try to be someone that you're not. Just have a conversation and talk. If you're passionate about their stuff, they'll be able to pick up on that. Don't be overly aggressive and all that. But the biggest thing I can tell you, honestly, God, is you just have to figure it out. Everyone has their own personalities. Everyone has their own delivery. Everyone has their own thing. You just gonna have to figure out by trying stuff and whatnot. But basically, just be yourself and just have a conversation. That's the best thing. Let's go to John real quick. Anything you're in your world, maybe especially with the puppy fund?
Yeah, the puppy guy. So like I said last week, we're got an event in May that Chris, you need to go to. It's right in your neck of the woods over at the Humidor. I want to say it's the Humidor over there in Zanesville. So gonna give those guys at Southeastern Guide Dog, but I also want to talk about another charity that I'm really close working with. It's called Big League Impact. It's with MLB pitcher Kyle Gibson. They do a lot of cool things, including a clay shoot in November. So I just want to give him a shout out because he's been so gracious to the St. Louis and Philly area and been awesome. Been a great guy.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks for coming on, bud. Hope to see you in Indy as well. One way or the other.
Maybe somebody drag me there, please.
I can drag you there. Yeah.
Let's do it. Just kidnap me. That's fine.
And did you say that was Big League Chew? Is that what you said? Or
100%.
Yeah.
Big League Impact.
Okay. I was just saying Big League Chew is like the.
Does he throw Big League Chew at you? Is it grape? I need to know.
It's got to be the grape. It has to be the grape if it's going to work.
The green apple is the best. What are y'all talking about?
Ooh, that's pretty good too. But I'm a grape guy. For sure.
I will just say if I can get you guys into the next shoot as a team, we did a 100 clay flurry at the end, which was a freaking blast.
Literally,
that doesn't
really
sound appealing to me at all.
Shut up, you terrible person.
If it was competition, I would go, but not on clay.
Yeah, it's all good. Chris, I'm gonna give you a chance to bring it in and tell people where they can find you. I know you got a cool chat coming on tomorrow night on your channel, but tell people about about the projects you have going on and all that jazz.
Yeah, I've got a couple videos coming out this week. We're gonna have a Wednesday night live chat tomorrow night at 9 Eastern. Pretty excited about this show. We got some people coming on that I've never had on the chat before, and so I think we've got Eagle Run coming on. We've got Christian Grest coming on. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
As far as NRAM goes, I forgot to apply until yesterday, so I'm waiting to hear back from the NRA before I book my hotel. So
is it open?
Don't do that. Don't do that. Do not wait on the NRA. Here's the thing.
They may not ever reply. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you went through the process online, you're in. And even if you're not, if you go and complain, if you're not in the books, I mean, you're going to be able to prove who you are in an instant with pulling up a YouTube on your phone. So don't wait.
And they'll print it out right there for you. But
yeah.
Is registration open finally? I didn't know it was open.
Yeah, it's open.
Okay. It wasn't a couple days ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I'm all signed up, so yeah.
I haven't been paying attention.
I really appreciate you sending me a link. I had a great 100%. Time tonight.
Absolutely.
Fun, so thank you.
Yeah, it's always interesting. It's always interesting for sure. Clover, bring it home. What you got? If you were going to do anything, what would it be?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
So I've been looking here real quick. Illinois, not the worst state to deer hunt in. Actually fairly lax on their regulations.
I would imagine that like maybe New York or Washington D.C. would be the worst place to deer hunt.
According to what I was reading, the deer population, as of like an article from 2020, is actually overpopulated in Illinois, which is great.
So they're probably getting more tags out then.
The only requirement, obviously, hunting license and where you hunt, and that sort of stuff but that's anywhere.
Yeah.
But the only stipulation really that I've seen, you've got to use 30 caliber or larger.
I got you. Okay.
So
I'm seeing for deer season, it's November 18th through the 20th and December 1st through the 4th. It's shotgun, muzzleloader, or handgun only for Illinois.
Yeah, I was always.
So right now at this time, it wouldn't be a good time to go hunt.
Oh, you can, but you're going to go to jail probably.
Yeah, you can, but you're not going to get. Like I got somebody that hunt Illinois, but they have to shoot slugs.
It's not even worth it then.
In Illinois, I was just looking and it said 30 caliber or larger.
They may have amended that. Like everybody I know who used to hunt Illinois,
have a 30 caliber.
It was muzzle loaders or slugs or bows. But there is some monster deer up there because especially southern Illinois,
especially if they're only been using muzzle loaders
and
bows, they haven't been killed forever. They're just growing and growing and growing.
Dude, it's nothing. If you've ever been to southern Illinois, it's nothing but cornfield and soybeans. Like there's nothing there. So the deer just eat.
It's a lot of deers. It's a lot. Like I've seen deers run across the highway. I've seen like 5 of them just run across the highway. Even like some.
I've got 10 that live in my front yard at night, so I could literally go out my front yard if I wanted to.
I was looking for hogs.
Yeah. I literally have a big family that's hang out that sleep in our front yard at night. So
I almost killed one with a RAV4 rental. So
what do you be feeding them, Ghost? You must be feeding them.
I don't feed them anything. They just they like where I live apparently.
Ghost is the doe whisperer.
Damn straight.
Well, he's a ghost. He's a ghost whisperer.
I'm the Bambi whisperer. So yeah. Huh?
I said, yeah.
Oh yeah.
He just pours out Tink 69.
So I didn't know that the media. I didn't know the media mod was open in RAM. Is that what y'all were talking about earlier?
I haven't seen anything. I've seen it where it says
a couple days ago.
It opened the 14th. I registered yesterday, the day before, finally.
Okay.
So I don't even see it.
It wasn't there when I checked over the weekend, so.
I see for like.
Because when I looked on the site, it said like I went down to media and then press kit and then it said,
you're probably gonna go into the attend or something. It'll have something with media, but we'll figure it out on the after chat about that.
I'll put the link in the side chat.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Appreciate
there we
it.
go. There we go.
Ghost, I appreciate you for
man.
the link.
You got it.
So I gotta go.
You have a good one, bro.
So y'all gentlemen, take care.
You too. Be safe, man. Good seeing you.
Yes, sir. All right.
Clover, go ahead and finish up. I know you got some podcasts coming up, don't you?
I do. Tomorrow is Bill with Patriots Firearm Schools. Met him at the Guns.com party in SHOT Show. So we're going to talk about his firearm school, and he wrote a book too. I think it's like What Happens After the Bell Rings or something having to do with school security. And then Matt from Meet the Pressers on Thursday, and then coming up here pretty doggone soon is the Ghost and Clover podcast. So
we've got, if you've noticed on my channel, on his channel, and the Ghost and Clover channel, we've already scheduled the first 3 on March 5th. Will be the first one.
Whenever I go through my subscriptions the other day, there was like 18 of the same thumbnail.
Yeah, it's
Well, it's one of those where we're going to, at least for the first maybe month or so, when we stream, it'll stream on all three of the channels, the Ghost and Clover channel, obviously, and then mine and Clover's. But Clover and I will probably, as soon as the stream's over, turn ours off on our channels, make it unlisted or whatever. And so the only replay will be available over Ghost and Clover channel. And then eventually we'll just transition over to the Ghost and Clover as it grows. But obviously we want to get the maximum exposure to that podcast. But yeah, that's going to start March 5th, that Sunday at 8 p.m. And then we'll go every other week. And then obviously with NRAM and different events, we'll have to figure out how we're going to schedule those. But yeah, for sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Clover. I keep interrupting your ass.
No, I think I'm done. I think that was it.
Okay, awesome. As far as us, yeah, we've got. I'm going to try to get to the range. This month has been absolutely awful weather-wise, and with my wife being gone, I haven't been to the range since before shot. But I've got a couple things I've got to get to the range and get taken care of. I've got a couple of new series coming out on the cooking side of things. It could be interesting. And then obviously you guys, if you don't know, we did kind of relaunch our car channel. It's called Speed Limit 155. Go check that out. Clover and I did the first podcast over there. He was a guest. We talked about our old cars and all that stuff. We're going to start maybe doing an occasional live stream over there, but having fun with the car chat as well. But yeah, check out that. Like I said, we've got guns that are going to be doing some stuff with some cool ammo that we've got. Got a lot of stuff coming, getting ready to start showing up here pretty soon. Next week, guys. Next week is going to be a fun show. We've got Core Elite Operations, Core Elite Ops will be joining us, and he's a former SEAL that's now doing some really cool stuff with rifles and some different accessories, and built probably the coolest 50 BMG I've ever seen in my life. It's there with those guys, but they'll be on next week. So make sure you show up for that one. It's going to be a really cool show. Really good guy. Josh is an awesome person, but Core Lead Ops will be with us next week. So G says, I thought I was the first guest. I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe on Clover's thing? I don't know. Oh, that's right. Oh, on the speed. Yeah. So yeah, G and I actually did one at like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was the night that I can't remember what was going on. I couldn't sleep or something. Or no, that was the night that we had the flood that I couldn't get home. So I was at work until like 4:30 in the mornings. I couldn't get to the house because of the flood. So it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. I decided to go live. I had nothing else. And G jumped on, and we were literally just having a conversation because nobody was out there because it's a new channel and all that. But that was fun. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a fun one. But yeah, anyways, guys, thanks for coming on. Thanks to Chris and to John, Chase, Snob, Clover, and to Mike for coming on. I really do appreciate it. If you guys have made it this far, my God, has it really been 2.5 hours? Is that right? My God, 2.5 hours. That doesn't seem like that. God bless you, because I wouldn't have been here for more than 10 minutes if I wasn't had to be. But thank you guys for watching and listening and replay and podcast form. Make sure you leave a comment if you're watching and replay. Make sure you leave a comment if you're listening to podcasts, and give us an old rating over there on the old podcast platform. That does help with us getting seen a lot. So go ahead and give us a nice little rating if you like it. If not, go away. So it's all good. Thanks guys for watching and listening. We appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Semper Fi.